OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, so I'm not going to lie to you, I had to look at the day on the newspaper to remind myself about what day of the week it was on, because this football is coming thick and fast, and it finishes just about around our bedtime, and so I'm kind of finding it difficult to keep up to date. How are you getting on?
Day 6 rather than Wednesday is how you should describe the days.
That's it. And on the 7th day we all rested, but that's not going to happen, is it?
No, it certainly is not going to happen. I haven't looked at tomorrow's fixtures. All I care about right now is Finland against Russia.
I mean, there's good beef is real potential for Finland against Russia, right?
I mean, there's quite a bit of history there, quite a nice amount of historical references that you could perhaps compile and be ready to spout on social media later if that was your thing.
What did you make last night? I mean, I think there's two big things that are starting to get talked about quite a bit. Three big things, I suppose, from yesterday that are getting talked about quite a bit. The parachutist, right? Absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is the concussion issue, which obviously football continues to pretend that it cares or has an idea about, and clearly doesn't when Pavard gets knocked out. And then the third thing is, I've seen a story this morning that Ronaldo apparently managed to wipe $1 billion off the share price of Coke by moving some post-match bottles. I haven't been able to stack this story up just yet, but I'm going to do a little bit of reading about it over the next while.
Wow, that is incredible. I thought that there's no such thing as bad publicity when it comes to these brands, but clearly there is. Heineken better watch their stocks as well then, because Paul Pogba did the exact same thing last night in his post-match press conference. He moved his bottle of Heineken. This is the real taking of a knee, isn't it? This is the real players taking a stand, is moving those bottles on press conference day.
Yeah. So Ronaldo makes a big play of it, apparently. I didn't see this yesterday. Did you see it live? Or
I didn't see it live, but I saw what happened. I mean, he walks in, he sees 2 bottles of Coca-Cola sitting in front of him. I think one might have been a Coke Zero, in fairness. And he picked them up by one hand, almost like a half-talented barman. And does he go like this to the crowd, kind of wagging his finger? If not, you can see from his facial expression that he does not approve of these 2 soft drinks sitting in front of him. He moves them over to his left-hand side and then picks up a bottle of water and waves that, puts it down. He's like,
Drink
that's
water.
what I'm drinking today. But who knows, maybe the water was it could have been sparkling water, could have been
River Rock,
water.
isn't there? Or whatever where was that game? Was that game in Portugal? Budapest. Whatever the Hungarian version of River Rock is, because they own River Rock too. But Coca-Cola share price dropped from $56.1 to $55.22.
Ooh. The
market value of Coca-Cola went from $242 billion to $238 billion.
This is the new Dogecoin. Get on Coca-Cola right now, to the moon with this particular soft drink, I think.
Just get the Redditors to back, plucky upstart Coca-Cola. Everything will be fine in the world. So that was that. The parachutist from different angles. Like the bit after I don't know if you've all seen this. So a Greenpeace activist parachuted into the Germany-France game last night, protesting against the continuing sale of diesel cars by Volkswagen, and they want oil-free cars, right? So he comes in, hits the spider cam, which, if you've done any research and you watch any football for the last essentially now 15 years, we've had spider cam going back quite a while, right? It's at least 2010. And I think potentially even 2008, certainly for the big games. And it was a big deal that they introduced for the final, but they've had it in American football for decades. So you can't just drop into a stadium. I'm also surprised he wasn't shot, basically. That's the other thing that was my main takeaway is I don't need snipers for all this kind of stuff these days. So fair play to the good police of Munich for not just assassinating the parachutist, first off. And secondly, he hits the spider cam, and then it's like, whoa, what is this thing that's randomly there? And then does this wheel around where it looks like he's about to take out about 15 or 20 of the people in the stadium who are kind of looking at it going, there's a mad parachutist over my head. He might hit me. He's very close to me. Wow, he just missed me. It wasn't like the kind of, in a disaster movie when stuff is falling, you always see people running away from it. But again, maybe it's just that they're very calm. Those French fans who made it to Munich and those Bavarians who were watching the game, pre-match nerves, excitement, whatever it was, the whole idea of being back in a stadium to watch your national team playing a absolutely massive game, they didn't seem to me to be that fussed about it. And then afterwards, UEFA released a statement saying several people have been hospitalised. I'm like, what? Where? Who did he actually hit people?
There was, so I don't know, I'm sure it's been out there, but there was some sort of parachute-related debris. So I'm not sure where that debris comes from, but Deschamps had to duck out of the way. Deschamps almost got, like, decapitated by a piece of plastic or something that came as a result of...
I think it was the spider cam.
Oh, it was the actual spider cam.
A piece of
That was a big spider cam. There's actual debris. I just saw it as like a GoPro hanging on a piece of string, to be honest. And I actually kind of thought, I was like, wow, you're pretty unlucky there, mate, to actually hit the spider cam. Stadiums are still quite big, and there is still quite a big opening, and you can evade it. Because it looks as if like the parachute artist evades the crowd. When he's like, oh, I'm almost going to kill people. He's like, better scoot away. And he manages to do so.
I'm watching it again. He's got to get his arse and his legs up. He's like, kind of, whoa, like you're careening downhill on a luge. He's luging at the end over the heads of some people. So maybe he took them out with his legs and then eventually lands on the pitch. And he lands so heavily, he has to be treated on the pitch for a period of time.
Like there was a point where he was almost close enough to be horizontal and then like run along the advertising hoardings at the kind of mid-tier level, which obviously would have been quite funny. But I'm glad that nobody has actually died as a result of this, which is probably the main thing, because people actually being taken away for serious injuries seems pretty incredible, to be honest. And that's his bucket list completed when he gets asked after a couple of bottles on a Friday night, what's on your bucket list? What are you going to do post-pandemic? I mean, he's like, I'm going to parachute into a major tournament.
There's a good chance though that they have to like charge him under terrorist activities or something like that, because like you're only giving people ideas here.
Yeah, like it's. I mean, has the point been made? Volkswagen come out and said, yeah, we've in the name of saving future spectators, we're going to change our ways. There's a
different angle over there. Well, UEFA did come out and say, look, we've got a lot of offsets that we're the most sustainable tournament ever. All right, what else are they going to say? But like they did include that as part of the conversation in the aftermath of it. So it's propelled. It's a propelled. There's an engine on the back of it as well, and the angle I'm seeing now is actually people are getting out of the way. But at the last minute, the way you kind of, the way you've seen somebody in the wall get hit in the face with the ball because they just missed it. Anyway, look,
yeah, I had like suspicion at the time that it was like Olivier Giroud actually parachuting into the stadium and was like, I'm starting tonight. Screw you, Karen.
What did you make of the football?
It was so good, wasn't it? It was definitely the best game of the tournament so far. Like, didn't have the goal-scoring madness of Ukraine-Netherlands, but I think when it came to quality, and still had a bit of madness to it, I think that this game is definitely the best game we've seen so far. I think that if you're Germany, you've got to be a little bit confident that you can upset Portugal, and if you get out of this group, do something with it. I would love to see Germany finish second in this group and play England in the last 16. I think that'd be a cracker of a knockout tie. I think that the English would hate that. I think they would really hate to be coming up against this Germany team. Like, I think what we came so close to seeing last night was this incredible arrival that nobody will ever forget from Kylian Mbappe on the European Championship stage. I still think it was an incredible arrival. Let's not forget that this was his first game at this tournament, and he was so incredibly good, especially in the second half when Germany remembered that they were Germany and they realised that their entire thing is having a national sense of superiority when it comes to looking down on every other team. And they were like, we've got Mats Hummels and that centre-back, does not matter. We are going to position ourselves on the halfway line, regardless of the fact that the guy at left wing for them is the fastest man in the world. And whether it was the squaring the ball for Benzema, the fact that when he like just stepped onto the travelator to go past Mats Hummels, like there was just two significant moments there that had things gone just a slight bit differently, he could have had a goal and an assist from the night, and everybody would be talking about Mbappe and his arrival on the scene so much. And yeah, I think it was just so close to being one of these great individual performances, and instead I guess it's Paul Pogba, his assist of the assist, that people are talking about when it comes to the meaningful impact and the result. Yeah,
I think though that I saw a lot of people complaining about the conservatism of Deschamps. We've kind of seen that a little bit, but it felt yesterday, talking to Julien Laurent, that perhaps they're about to catapult out of that, and the team's capabilities, certainly as we go on, I think are going to get more and more revealed, and I think they're going to grow with confidence after. Like, this game is in Germany against Germany.
Yeah.
And I know they beat them the last time they played them, but they lost them the time before that. And like, there are these historic ghosts in French football history, and they're German shaped. So I think it's a big result, and I don't think they're going to be as bad as that, as conservative across the rest of the tournament as they were, for example, in the World Cup. Yeah,
like I do think, just on Mbappe again, I do think that there is a moment coming at some point in this tournament where he solidifies his position as the best player in the world. Like, this has been an interesting week. We've seen Lionel Messi do Messi things in the Copa America. We've seen Ronaldo score twice last night. There is obviously a growing sense that neither of them are the best current player in the world, but I think it'll just take one. I think maybe a brace or something from Mbappe, which I think is coming soon, and everybody's like, right, that's it. The conversation's over. The crown has moved onto the head. It was kind of like in the basketball last night when Kevin Durant puts in this incredible performance for the Brooklyn Nets, and it's just kind of this reminder that it's like LeBron's not the best player in the world anymore. Like, Durant is the best player right now, and I think Mbappe is about to do that at some point very soon. It probably has already happened, but I just think that in a tournament setting, he needs to. I don't know, but those two moments were on a knife edge yesterday, and if he gets that goal and an assist, we're probably having that conversation this morning.
The Nets signed Durant after he'd done his Achilles, and he sat on the bench for a year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Essentially. Wow. And he's back to being the best in the world straight away, or fairly close to straight away. This season.
So, yeah, like right. 49 points in 48 minutes and a triple-double. I think it was like 15 rebounds, 10 assists last night. And pardon my ignorance, what stage of the season are we at?
We're
at the playoffs. They're up against the Clippers, or not up against the Clippers at the moment, the Milwaukee Bucks at the moment. They've gone up 3-2. That was game 5 last night. They were really up against it. There was a sense that the Bucks were going to do them in this series, and not so. The Nets are I describe this as potentially the best trio in the history of basketball when this trade happened. Himself and Harden and Kyrie probably should have just reassigned that to just saying they have Kevin Durant, so therefore they have the potential to win everything. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next little while, but they look in a really good position.
So now's a good time to tune in and get on the bandwagon.
Oh, 100%. And there is, I just tweeted out a 5.5-minute clip of just Durant last night.
Don't say we don't look after you here on OTB AM. We're live in association with Gillette this morning, and every morning, good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Phil is with us. Phil Egan, good morning to you. How are you?
How are you doing, lads? How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. We're talking about the performance last night of France. I like, again, just to go back to the point, there's definite criticism of Deschamps not allowing this team to fulfil its destiny and be the most free-flowing, beautiful football team we've ever seen. But like, it's Germany away in the first game of a tournament. I thought they played pretty well.
Yeah, I thought they played well within themselves. I think, yeah, they definitely seem to play with the handbrake on. This is what they do, and people would have predicted, most people predicted before the tournament they'd win, and this is why, because there's more gears to go, and they didn't even need to do it, and Germany didn't create too many chances, so you can imagine what France would be like if they were let go and play, but there's a fair chance we won't get to see that, and they'll win the tournament, and we'll be left with this French team that have won a World Cup, a European Championship, got to the final in their own European Championship as well, which they hosted, and we'll be saying, wow, what an achievement that is. And there'll be still a slight, but I mean, did we see the best of them? But that's just the way they play.
Do you not think that there's a possibility that it's impossible for Mbappe not to drag the team with him as the tournament goes on and the confidence improves and just the time spent together improves, that actually we might see a slightly more effusive version of the football?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, last night was another game under the belt for the Benzema and Mbappe partnership, and the more they play, the better they're going to be. And yeah, we've seen it with plenty of teams in this tournament so far, that there's a little bit of rust there, and it's about just making sure. I think it's very important you just don't lose that first group game, because otherwise you put yourself under pressure going into the second group game. Say, for example, Germany now have to play Portugal at the weekend. Some people would argue you could win one game and still go through. That might be the case, but there's still going to be 2 third-place teams that miss out. But going back to what you say about France, yeah, I thought they played well within themselves, but if they were a bit more incisive on the counter-attack, they could have got a few more goals. And I know they did a couple of goals ruled out by VAR, but even the Benzema one that's ruled out, if Pogba's just a little bit quicker getting his feet sorted, then he plays Mbappe in, and Mbappe's not caught offside, and then Benzema scores, and the scoreline looks a bit more impressive. And who knows, they could have got another one. But yeah, from what we've seen, that's the first round of games done. I haven't changed my mind. I still think France are going to win the tournament.
There had been a trend, Phil, it seemed, that if you had just started watching all of these games from about 50 minutes in, you would have been okay. Is that just the first round of games? Is that just the way it is when you go in? You just want to keep it tight for the first half and then allow things to open up for the second half. And basically, is this the trend now, the second half of all these games? Is that going to be the norm over the next week or so?
Yeah, there's been so few goals scored in the first half where you're almost thinking, if you've got things to do during the day and you're going to miss a half, first half for someone to miss. Obviously, the 2 o'clock games, I usually leave the office at 2 o'clock and I get the first half on the radio, and then I'll be at home in time for the second half. But there have been the odd few goals in the first half. But I think that's just international football. We're so used to watching elite club football, whether it's Premier League, La Liga. Obviously, the Champions League goes to a different level where teams go at each other from the start. But that's just not what happens in international football anymore. And probably that's why we're looking at this French team with so much talent, and they play certain ways with their clubs. But when it comes to international football, it is a bit cagier, and it is a case of feeling your way into a game.
What did you make of Cristiano Ronaldo's performance? There was a header in the first half where it felt a little bit like peak Ronaldo gets up a second and a half earlier and is like coming down to meet the header, as opposed to current Ronaldo where the joints are just a little bit achy, the body doesn't recover quite as quick, and he didn't quite make it. And then second half, it's like, yeah, I'll take the penalty, and the goal was pretty good.
Yeah, the goal was excellent. And I think if Jota plays that ball into him early on, Ronaldo probably scores, and it's a far more comfortable afternoon for Portugal. Jota just seemed to have one of those games for Portugal yesterday where he just never seemed to have the ball under control. He obviously had that chance to square it to Ronaldo. Then there was another one in the first half where the ball came to him. If he'd actually just stepped over it, Bruno Fernandes would have got a better attempt away, and Jota was actually taken off early in the second half. And the attacking talent that they have at their disposal, that might mean that Jota doesn't start the next game. But Ronaldo now, you're wondering, is he gonna break that international record? He's obviously surpassed Platini by scoring the 2 goals yesterday. But yeah, Portugal and France are the 2 teams you would have fancied to finish first and second in the group. And again, I haven't changed my mind, but it sets things up nicely for that Portugal and Germany game at the weekend. Yeah,
the team selection was pretty interesting. The array of attacking talent that they have in Portugal at the moment is pretty scary. And I think somebody on the show compared them to, was it Daniel Harris compared them to England? Like, how do you get everybody in the team? It turns out you can't get everybody in the team, and you're not supposed to try and get everybody in the team if you want to have a balanced side. So I think Portugal are going to be a bit dangerous once they get a little bit of dander up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, like it does, the same does apply to England as well. There's certain players that are going to miss out, but it's how you keep those players happy. And you have to put the arm around them and say, look, this is a long tournament. I've got 5 substitutes. You're going to see game time. So if you don't start, it doesn't mean I don't rate you, but just, be patient. You'll get your chance. And I think, there'll be changes. And that's just the nature of tournament football. You have to make changes. Also, you're coming off the back of a very long slog of a season during a pandemic where players are going to be tired. And the benches with the 5 substitutes means that the team that finishes games could be stronger than the team that actually starts games.
Are you staying along the lines that everybody was saying before the tournament with regards to this group, that it will be France 1, Portugal 2, Germany 3, or did that German performance last night, despite losing, perhaps change that a little bit?
No, I'd still be going towards that France, Portugal, and Germany. And I think if Germany just make sure if they can get a draw against Portugal at the weekend, then they'll be fine, because they'll have Hungary in the last game. He said they might be okay with a win. 4 of the 6 go through, and if you look back at the last Euros, Portugal didn't even win a group game, and they still got through, and they obviously go on and win the tournament. So I think France will obviously beat Hungary, and then they'll be sitting pretty at the top, and they just need a draw against Portugal probably to top the group.
Phil, what else is going on today?
Yeah, well, there's 3 more games in the Euros. So we've got the 2 o'clock game back. The football fans were very disappointed there was no 2 o'clock game yesterday. But at 2 o'clock today, it's the meeting of Finland and Russia in Group B. That's in St. Petersburg. Obviously, Finland coming off the back of that win over Denmark. In Group A, then at 5 o'clock, Wales play Turkey in Baku. That is going to feel like a home game for Turkey. There's going to be that many Turkish fans in the stadium. And then at 8 o'clock, Italy, who impressed many in the opening game of the tournament, faced Switzerland in Rome. The Republic of Ireland women's team were in friendly action last night against Iceland again. They lost 2-0. So that's now 7 defeats in a row for Vera Pauw's side. Their next game is in September. It's the start of the World Cup qualifiers now. It's a much easier game. It's away to Georgia on the 17th of September. The Premier League fixtures will be announced at 9 o'clock this morning. Obviously, the season is due to start on the 14th of August, and Brentford will find out their first ever Premier League opponents. Reigning US Open champion Bryson DeChambeau insists his public spat with Brooks Koepka is just, he's used the word banter. The 2 American golfers obviously have created comments on social media. We know whenever Bryson DeChambeau walks by fans at any event now that fans shout Brooks' name at him, but they're obviously going to be in the field for US Open this week. There is mixed reports talking about whether they were asked, their respective camps were asked, would they mind being paired together at the US Open? But both players have actually denied that's the case. And the Prince of Wales Stakes is the feature race in day 2 at Royal Ascot. The Aidan O'Brien trained Love will go off as favourite for that one. That's at 4:20. Action at Ascot's underway at 2:30. There's also racing in Wexford from 1:20. 8 race programme at Navan as well at 5:25.
All right, good stuff, Phil. Thanks very much for that. It's Phil Egan. You can read more from him on otbsports.com, and you can hear him across Today FM, right across the day. 7:52 this morning. Doing a bit of digging on this Cristiano Ronaldo Coca-Cola story here, right? Yannick Fjortoft told this story. I don't know if it was recently or if when he told it from, but so this is on givemesport.com this morning. Yannick Fjortoft, the former footballer turned TV pundit, explained how Ryan Giggs once confronted Ronaldo over a bottle of Coca-Cola, a story that he heard from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So obviously the story has an eyewitness on the scene, and it's a third-hand report. So you pays your money and you make your choice about whether or not you believe this. Ronaldo came once to a breakfast with a Coke in his hands, Fjortoft said. Already a bit of a red flag for me, anybody drinking Coke for breakfast. I mean, you know, maybe Cristiano doesn't seem...
Nice.
Well, Cristiano doesn't seem like the type to be kind of on the rollover where you need that sugary whatever it is. And also, Lucozade is everybody's go-to, right? Lucozade Orange.
Did he have a chicken fillet roll with the Coca-Cola is all I want to know.
Giggs pushed him on the wall and said, "Don't ever do that again." No wonder Ronaldo is scared to even look at a bottle of Coke again.
Yes, this is definitely why. Ryan Giggs and yeah, well, like I mean that's definitely why Ronaldo moved those bottles yesterday. Like in fairness, there is probably some deeper commercial conflict here, or potentially that Ronaldo. Oh, sorry, you're about to continue.
So that's one theory, right?
Okay, sorry. Okay.
The other theory, obviously, is that who is Coke's biggest rival?
I would say Pepsi would be Coke's biggest rival, Joe.
Who is Pepsi's biggest star?
Oh, I would say Lionel Messi would be Pepsi soft drinks' biggest star.
And who is Lionel Messi's biggest rival?
I would say Cristiano Ronaldo, who plays
what are the odds? So I don't know. Surely he would be pro Coke in that instance.
Well, yeah, exactly. Everything just comes back full circle to Messi versus Ronaldo. Maybe Mbappe likes Coca-Cola.
I think, is Mbappe not in the Pepsi ad too?
Oh, yeah. Everybody's in the Pepsi ad.
I mean, almost everybody except Ronaldo. Maybe Ronaldo was holding out to get Coke. Coke never came for him. And he's like, no, I'm not having this.
He's picking hills to die on, Ronaldo, and he didn't get the invite to the soft drink ad, so now he's gone all out and has started a war against soft drinks in general.
More information. This is good quality live journalism in the field. This is what it looks like, folks. His staunch refusal of sugary drinks has even transcended into his home life, reports The Mirror this morning. His eldest son, Cristiano Ronaldo Jr. Do people still name in this day and age? Oh, I guess they do. Leaving him fuming when he has a swig. Speaking last year on his son's ambitions to follow in his footsteps, he said, "I'm hard with him sometimes because he drinks Coca-Cola and Fanta sometimes, and I'm pissed with him. I fight with him when he eats chips and fries and everything. He knows I don't like it.
Do you not have like some sort of control over what your kid is eating?
No.
Is he just like walking down to the chipper and it's like, bag of fries there, mate, and walking home? I presume Cristiano Ronaldo Jr. isn't, unless he's like, I mean, a 21-year-old man and he's like speaks about him as a child. I presume that you'd have some sort of control over that.
I understand it. He's only 10 years old. It's up to him.
Okay,
I'm not going to push nothing for him to be a football player. Ronaldo has previously worked in advertising campaigns for Pepsi and Coca-Cola, suggesting he wasn't always as opposed. Just not recently. Just not recently. What have you done for me recently? So that was my favourite story coming out yesterday, I have to say. And also, like, if Ronaldo breaks Ali Dia's record, like, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, like it helps that he starts incredibly young and has all these tournaments at which to play at.
He's also playing against the best teams in the world who are all going, this guy, let's try not to let this guy have any space.
Yeah, no, it is a remarkable record. The Ali Day record has always seemed like an obscene number of goals for any international footballer to score. So for Ronaldo to do it is obviously incredible. And he will get there eventually. He might not be at this tournament, but he will play until the next World Cup.
He has to, I think, at this stage. 7:56 this morning. Let's tell you about what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. We have Field Queens, Oonagh, Whyte and Orlaith Duff are going to talk to us about their initiative to design and manufacture Gaelic Games gear for women. Philippe LeClaire is going to join us at 8:10 from L'Equipe to talk to us about where the French team are in the hearts and minds of the French football public, and also what the performance was like last night. We've got the sports pages coming on to you at 8:30. We're going to hear from John Duggan for Virtual Insanity. John Hartson is going to talk to us about Wales and what they need to do to get back into the tournament. Well, I suppose they're not out of the tournament at all. And then the US Open with Nathan, we'll preview that at 9:10. And then John Gonzalez talking about Alan Iverson from 9:30 this morning. Now, I am delighted to say Oonagh Whyte and Orlaith Duff are with us. Both All-Ireland winners. They're going to launch their new sport and leisure wear brand, Field Queens. Field Queens' first products are their Empower GA gloves designed and tailored to fit the female hand. The first GA gloves aimed exclusively at ladies Gaelic footballers, as inter-county players Orla and Oonagh know the importance of top quality sports gear to help them perform at an elite level. Good morning to you both. How are you getting on?
Good morning. How are you?
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Mel.
So what is the difference between your gloves and the previously manufactured gloves?
I suppose the main difference is, as you mentioned there, that they're literally designed specifically for women. So that was kind of how we stumbled upon this idea. Was we realised that there was a major gap in the market for ladies' Gaelic gloves. They just don't exist in Ireland. And even looking around shops and shopping online, everything was men's sizes, and kids were all aimed towards large boys, medium boys. There was nothing there for girls. So the main difference is that they're sized and like they are skin tight fit for girls.
What were you using up to this? Like obviously men's gloves of badly shaped, ill-fitting men's gloves.
Yeah, so I suppose for years we were used to just going into a shop and asking for a small and not really thinking about the behind the scenes of it, where it's small men's or medium men's. So I suppose we got so used to that, but it's just I suppose over the course of the last few months being out of sport ourselves, we had a bit more time on our hands, and we looked into it, we researched, and we just felt, given the increase in popularity of ladies football, that really there should be something on the market for girls and women, so that little girls that go into a shop have a choice whether they want, there are many gloves on the market already targeted for men, but that they have a choice to choose a female glove that fits them, that's tailored for them. So
obviously there's a gap in the market. You realise there's a gap in the market, and then you go, we're going to fill this. How the hell do you actually go about designing and then sourcing and manufacturing gloves? Like, because it's not like, you can just go to the local tailor and say, yeah, knock me up a few there.
Yeah, I suppose it was a long process. Same with anything, when you're setting up anything at first, and there was a lot of over and back, because we really wanted to get it right, and we wanted to be a product that we could stand over, and obviously one that we were going to be wearing on the pitch. So if we were going to wear it, we wanted it to be of very high quality. So as I said, there was a lot of over and back, and we weren't happy with the sizing at first, and we were changing material and stuff. So that kind of takes time. But I suppose anything you're going to do, if you're going to do it right, it does take time. So that was something that we were willing to do.
But is there like quite a lot of science involved as well? Because I mean, maybe there isn't. Maybe it's like, look, we want them to be very similar to the gloves that are out there, just different.
Well, I suppose what Eoin said there about the trial and error was it was a lot of getting a ruler out, trying to make sure that we had the correct fit, and over and back with that process, and measuring it up against ourselves and other people, getting them trialing them. So it was over and back with the manufacturer until we were happy with the fit of the gloves. And that was really something that was very important to us. We weren't going to bring something to market that we didn't feel was the right fit and the perfect fit for girls.
The evolution of the GAA glove is something like fairly interesting. We did a Classic Games Club recently where it was the 2001 Dublin Kerry game, and all the Kerry lads looked like they were wearing black gloves. I've no idea what they were. And Kieran Whelan obviously had the old school Packy Bonner style Italian 90 goalkeeping gloves. So what are your gloves actually like? You're saying that they're skin tight, so they're not the big and bulky gloves anymore.
Yeah, they're very skin tight, which even when some girls were trying them on, they nearly thought they were too small for them, but it was because they're just so used to wearing a big glove. They're not used to a skin tight fit. So that's the kind of idea behind it, that they literally are a skin tight fit, and the type of material that they are, they kind of cling to your hand. So yeah, that's kind of the basic principle behind it.
Yeah, and they're very light materials, so they're ideal for, our unpredictable weather. And a lot of girls would like to wear a glove even in good weather, so it's ideal for the summer months.
Yeah, like when you think about those classic gloves that would have done the rounds back in the day, like I'm not sure, would you have sported the Mikasa gloves back in the day, the yellow with the black dots? Did they work? Did the black dots actually work? Were they scientifically proven?
I actually don't know, but I think they're making a bit of a comeback at the minute.
Right.
But yeah, I think anyone that played GA in the 90s had to sport them for a while anyway.
And there's also kind of obviously the sense of whenever you get a dry summer's day and then halfway through the match it starts raining, there's somebody on the side of the pitch now throwing gloves out. I'm not sure the way you've drilled down to it at this point. Have you got an exact science on when is the best time to actually have a pair of gloves on you when it comes to ball handling and the ideal conditions to actually wear them?
So like I said, a lot of people, for myself, I'm a fullback player and I like wearing a glove a lot, so it's a personal preference. Obviously, in wet conditions, it is important to wear gloves. I know some people don't like to use them, but in wet conditions, you should be wearing the gloves. And then I think if it's dry, it's a really personal preference. But our gloves are designed you can wear it in either weather. So it's just about dampening the gloves beforehand to get a good grip. So, and that's whether you're playing in dry conditions or wet, give them a little dampen to make sure that there's good grip before you start.
So is this the plan now for the rest of your lives? You realise that actually there's a gap in the market, but not just for gloves. It turns out for all types of sports gear that is for women by women. Is that the dream? Is that what comes next?
Yeah, we have a couple of products coming. Like we've been working on a few different things over the last few months. Now the other products we have coming down the line at the minute are smaller kind of accessories and stuff. But we have plans for lots of different products. But like, you know yourself, they all take time getting stuff like that out to market. But we definitely have plans to expand it as we go on anyway. The gloves are kind of just the starting point.
And where are the other gaps? I suppose what we're trying to do is to bridge the gap for ladies footballers.
And in terms of, there are a lot of, in terms of accessories and gym gear targeted towards males. So we're trying to bridge the gap for the female market. And then we're hoping to go down the line and not only cater for footballers, but mainstream women that go to the gym, that enjoy their sports, in terms of the clothing they wear. So that's kind of the long-term vision.
Yeah, like some of the products we have coming actually aren't even GAA related, you know, that kind of way. So we're just looking to hit the sports, kind of female sports market in general.
It seems like it's a good time to be getting into this.
Yeah, like there's a big market out there. I think with the lockdown and stuff, a lot of people realised how much they turned to fitness and exercise and stuff. And well, the ladies' Gaelic market is certainly growing and has been for years now. If you look back at attendances at ladies' games and even the coverage that it's getting in the media and stuff over the last few years, that has grown so much. But as I said, I think from the lockdown, like people really realised that, you know, looking after your mind is looking after your body is looking after your mind, you know, that kind of way. And they really turned to gyms like running and all that, you know, the way like there was all that running the 5K and all that, you know, people really, really appreciated the benefits of exercise. So I definitely think there's a market there.
How is your respective seasons going at the moment? Orla, you were injured last year. Did you do an ACL? Is that right?
Yeah, so I tore my ACL in the first round of club championship at the end of August and had my surgery at the end of September. So I'm currently rehabbing away and training alongside the Meath girls at the minute. So I'm itching to get back. So I'm hoping that I'll be towards the end of the season to be back with them. But I suppose, as everyone knows, in ACL, you don't want to rush it. So I'm just doing everything that I'm being told with the physio, working hard every day. It's great now that gyms are back open. I've been told that, and everyone I think that's done their ACL or any other significant injury, you're kind of I suppose, on the back foot from the outside because gyms weren't open and you don't have access to equipment. So I've done my best, made a makeshift gym in the house, and I'm going really well. So I'm really hoping to be back for both county and the club championship. I
can only imagine the heartbreak of waiting for lockdown to be over, training away on your own, eventually being allowed to go back training, and then straight away to go pop. Yeah, definitely. And last year was a bad year in general because at Christmas, I broke my hand in a challenge match with Meath against Waterford. So I was out for 9 weeks, and then lockdown hit, trained away on my own, got myself back fit and was ready for action. And then the first round of club championship went to turn and my knee didn't come with me, my foot didn't turn, and the girl fell back on me, and that was it. So I'm very eager to get back, and it'll just be great to play the game again. It's hard watching from the lines, especially now with COVID, because you feel very, I suppose, isolated from the team in that if you're not on the starting 30 or not named in the panel, then you have to sit in the stand. There's no access to in the dugouts or in the dressing rooms. And I'm the vice captain this year, so I'm finding it hard to encourage, I suppose, when you're in the stand. But I'm looking forward to getting back, and hopefully restrictions will continue to ease for us. Oonagh, how's your form?
Yeah, so like Orla, I was out for the whole year last year with a concussion injury that I picked up in early February last year in a league game against Cork and Croke Park. It was just a simple kind of head collision, and as it turned out, it wasn't so simple in the end, and I missed a full year of contact sport from it, just due to ongoing symptoms and stuff. So I'm only after getting back now, like as anything, I suppose during that, it was very different to any other injury I've had. Like I've done the ACL journey before, like Orla, and it was a very different one because I couldn't actually do any exercise with the concussion. So I was kind of easing myself back in after that year. So I'm still kind of just carrying a couple of little niggles and trying to get them sorted before I can fully return to play, but we'll get there.
That must have been pretty scary.
Yeah, I suppose people often say like it must have been scary, but I mean, I was constantly reassured by, medical professionals around me that it would go at some stage. It was just kind of a matter of time, and you just have to, it's literally, that's all they can tell you with a concussion is to manage your symptoms and to give yourself time with it, because they have no idea how long it's going to last. After 2 weeks, they were like, oh, maybe this will go on for another couple of weeks. And then weeks went into months, and the months came into, well, it was probably about 10 months before the symptoms really started to go. But I wouldn't say scary, but it wasn't the best situation I've ever been in either,
And did you have any second thoughts about going back to contact sport in the aftermath of that?
I suppose it was something I considered in terms of just how bad I was over that year, that I couldn't work or anything. And I was quite lucky with the lockdown when that came, because there certainly wasn't able to socialise or anything like that. Couldn't be anywhere near light or anything, or noise even. But so I suppose I did think it was something I thought a lot about, but I didn't really second guess coming back, because I think when it's a game you love so much and you're playing it from such a young age, it's kind of just, it's your natural kind of inclination to go back to it. And when all your friends are involved and all that kind of thing, anytime I mulled it over, it was only for a very short kind of space of time, you know.
All right, it sounds like both of you put your lockdown and injuries to pretty good use. That disgusting question that everybody keeps getting asked about their side hustles. All of a sudden, you guys have this amazing new business, putting the rest of us to shame and actually having an answer to that question when people ask you about it. So, what's next? The gloves are available in shops soon. Now, today. What's the best way if anybody wants to get their hands on the gloves?
Yeah, so we have a website, so www.fieldqueens.ie, and we're actually launching in our first store in a week's time in a local sports shop in Navan. So we're trying to roll it out into other sports shops. We've got great interest, and especially with club orders, we're doing a discount at the minute of 15% off a bulk order from clubs, and that's really taken off. And it's so lovely to see young girls, intermediate, senior teams out wearing our gloves. I was at a match, my own club last night, got their order, and they were all wearing theirs in their first league game. So it's such a thrill to walk out into a pitch and see girls wearing your gloves and feeling like they're representing. And that is the whole reason we set up this. It's a passion project, really. It's about getting girls, keeping girls in sport, making sure we all feel represented on and off the field.
Yeah, well, listen, Oonagh Whyte and Orlaith Duff, we wish you both the very best of success with the business and your return from injury as well. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So fieldqueens.ie for your gloves there. The concussion injuries are definitely worrying, particularly in the light of the stuff that we were seeing last night on.
Yeah, and how long I think you can be recovering from concussion, I think, as well, as something that maybe we don't quite appreciate. I think probably a positive, but maybe in the sense of rugby at the moment, it does seem that people are being out of action for longer as a result of concussion injuries. It feels a bit like this is just purely sort of an anecdotal thought, but it just kind of feels that this season in particular, Irish players have been out longer with concussions, and I can't imagine the concussions are any more serious. It's just that they're being more cautious with them, it did feel that after a week or two max you'll be thrown back in, no questions asked, and that was kind of like the one-size-fits-all approach. But as we've heard there as well, like across a number of sports, it can go on for months, and the care has to go on for a couple of months. For sure. 12 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM. We're live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We're going to talk Wales with John Hartson before 9 o'clock. And we're going to preview the US Open with Nathan a little bit later on. We're back after these talking France with Jean-Philippe LeClaire.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Rugby podcasts? If not, here's some of what you've missed in the last week.
Since he has been suspended, I've had some interesting messages. My mum hasn't come out great from it. It's been interesting, to say the least.
He would give it to you, and he gave it to me several times, and I was running around after him, trying to kill him for the rest of the session.
Subscribe now to the OTB Rugby podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, or get the entire OTB catalogue on the OTB Sports app.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for a full range of markets on shots on target, assists, passes and more on every match of the Euros, all powered by Opta. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, CBG.
Boyle Sports, this is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Automower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
I think it's happy camp at the moment. I think it could change quite quickly, because you have to think that a lot of the rumblings that there were before Benzema came in the team, everything's been smoothed over, and everybody's happy and everybody's very friendly, and Benzema has been absolutely impeccable in the way he's communicated with the media and the way that he's played the game. Deschamps as well has played, I was going to say with the straight bat, but he played very good forward defensive shots, basically. But there are, should things not turn out as well as we hope they will, you will see that part of the public, of the opinion, is having quite a strong reaction. And that is one of the reasons why I'm a little bit worried about this particular game against Germany if it didn't go according to plan. That is, if France lost. If there's a draw, nobody will mind so much. I mean, what matters is the qualification. But if there was a setback, I think it would have consequences. Because there are also, I mean, there are some tensions within the group, as there are within every single international group you can think of. I'm very interested to see how Kylian Mbappe is going to play in this tournament. I have to say I'm not too sure. I don't think he's necessarily in the right frame of mind at the moment. And I'm not necessarily just thinking about the press conference that he gave yesterday, which was quite funny in some ways. But I'm thinking more in terms of his performances recently. He was doing far too much with the ball. He was trying too hard, or he was trying things which were easy on the eye but didn't necessarily come off, which he really has to take out of his game in a major tournament. I think he's also not necessarily in the easiest of places as far as his future is concerned. He's very non-committal about that. You know, he's only got 1 year left with on his contract with PSG. There's an awful lot of talk about him going, and this has an impact on players. So for these reasons and the slight tensions which might exist within the squad, slight, I insist on that. I'm hoping that the first game will be okay, and that will pull through that. Because if that were not the case, there will be rumblings. There would be people who wouldn't be happy at all.
Yes, that was Philippe LeClaire speaking last night before the game. Obviously, success is what's the BAM, whatever all those cliches are about winning cures everything. I'm going to run you through the newspaper headlines very quickly to give you a sense of what's in the papers this morning. I just needed some balance. That is Paul Mannion, who was out yesterday for the PwC All-Stars. Mannion explains why he made the decision to step away from Dubs. He said he's delighted with the decision. It was completely the right thing for him. He felt the commitment to the inter-county game was pretty heavy. It's not that he doesn't love the game anymore, but all the talk about the commitment inter-county players give, it is a really big commitment. You can't do it forever. It just got to the point where I've been doing it a fair number of years and I just want to spend time on other things. That's really it. There's no big major reason other than that. And there was he did use the phrase, I'm happy with my lot for now, which would just leaves it tantalisingly close that maybe he will come back at some point in the future. But equally, he also seemed pretty happy with the decision he'd made. Kane happy to share the burden with teammates. This is Harry Kane was out to impress yesterday. And if you're looking for a bit of a reach, here it is. Kane, look out, I've got 50 cents. What do you think this means?
He's got the 50, so for radio listeners, it's SCENT, so he's got the sniff of 50 about him. So is he about to get his 50th cap? Is he about to score his 50th goal in some capacity?
No.
What is the 50?
Where was the goal that
50
Scotland
yards,
conceded?
Patrick Schick. And of course, Harry Kane, scored from 50 yards in a pre-season friendly against, was it Paris Saint-Germain that one time, and now people are connecting the dots and being like, that guy can also do that thing.
Good knowledge about pre-season friendlies there, yeah. Kane also scored a halfway stunner in a pre-season friendly against Juventus 2 years ago. Close, Owen. No cigar for you this morning. And that's that. That's exactly it. He's like, yeah, sometimes these things happen. The ball, cannons, goalkeepers are after line, and you can try a shot, and away we go.
Is this the English press and their way of looking at what the Czech Republic achieved the other night and saying, we can do that? Exactly. Kind of like we were saying ourselves, we can do that, whereas the English are like, we can score from 50 yards.
Blue is the colour. Hummel's howler gets France off to a flyer. Captain Kane concedes he is not undroppable. That's the Guardian. And Tokyo Games athletes could be deported for COVID breaches, which, I mean, is exactly the right thing to do, obviously. The back page of the Star is rattle and hum. You good? You getting it? You like it? No?
I like it.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, Hummels.
Yeah. Matt's OG gives France victory as Rudiger may face bite probe.
That was weird, wasn't it?
The bite, yeah. The bite was pretty weird. My favourite one was Rudiger biting Pogba like you're watching Netflix and it's getting late in the evening.
Maybe he did.
I don't know what the implication is there on.
Did he have? I thought at one time he maybe had an itchy nose or like an itchy upper lip, and he kind of like brushed it off him just to. He needed to keep his hands on him.
That is the absolute. Oh, I was just itching my nose. You can't ban me for that.
Well, like there's no, like I mean he's not exactly showing a bite. Like,
no.
Like there's a grab. The grab is kind of the fondling of Paul Pogba is a bit weird, all right. But I think that's because he's got his eyes off because he's like can't let him go, but he's also got an itchy nose. Man's got to itch his nose.
The front page of the Mirror, Chris Almighty, that's Christian Eriksen in his hospital bed yesterday. And the back page of the Daily Mirror, now or never, GA mind games warming up. Pat Spillane, they'll be delighted down in Kerry reading this. They'll be like, we sent that lad to Dublin with one job to do, talk us down, and he comes back saying it's now or never.
They sent Pat Spillane on the same mission last year before the Cork game, and then he wrote that rogue independent column saying Kerry were going to be Cork by like 20 points. Which became like the cover photo of every Cork person in Ireland on Twitter for a couple of weeks, and rightly so.
He's done it again. Pat Spillane says Kerry simply have to take down a vulnerable Dublin this year. What are you going to do? What? Like, how do they put that back? The toothpaste is all over the place.
Yeah.
Peter Keane is scrubbing it up with like one of those toothbrushes that's gone kind of frayed at the edges, trying to get it back in the tube, but it won't fit, Eoin.
It just won't fit. Like, I mean, Pat Spillane obviously has a very significant personal milestone that he's trying to protect as well. He is obviously joint top medal winner in All-Ireland history, but Cluxton and Philly and James McCarthy and Kevin McManaman and Cian O'Sullivan will all go to 9 this year and ahead of Pat Spillane. So, cheers, Pat Spillane. You've just, messed up your own legacy.
Although Spillane would not go as far to say Dublin bore him, he would love to see a bit of flair, risk-taking and long-range point-taking from Desi Farrellside. It sounds like that's the type of thing where you get asked, would you say Dublin are boring you? And he's like, no, I wouldn't go that far.
Here's why you might say that.
It'd be interesting to see how that question was phrased or how we got to that. So, are there any actual comments here? There are, yeah. For years now, we've been spouting the mantra, we have a bunch of talented young footballers, and we have a conveyor belt of young football talent coming through. But at some stage, you're going to have to say, at what stage do your young lads need to deliver? These lads need to start delivering. These lads are now in their mid to late 20s. Clifford's 22, is he? Is that mid-20s? Is 22?
No.
You're late 20s then, Eoin.
24 is mid-20s. It's 20 to 20 is you're 20. 21 to 23, you're early 20s. 24 to 26, you're mid-20s. 27 to 29, you're in your late 20s. And 30, you're obviously 30.
These lads are in the prime of their careers. And Kerry, you're judged by All-Ireland medals. That's the sad reality, whether you like it or not. They need to take down the Dubs, and I think they can take down the Dubs. That's what we want to hear. A bit of kingdom pride.
You almost broke the table in half there with that slam down of Spillane quotes. It's good copy.
I mean, look, he's only saying what everybody in Kerry's thinking.
But that's the whole point. Don't talk about what you're thinking. Don't talk about your feelings. Don't tell your loved ones you love them. That's the Kerry way of life. So that's Pat Spillane breaking from tradition there.
The Irish Times. France after winning start, his own goal ruins German night. Away day for Wales as they face the force of Turkey's Baku backers. Gavin Cummins gives a piece with Dr. Alan Byrne, who said he's very surprised that the game restarted after the collapse. Maybe this is me being very simplistic. I'm not sure if they were the two options that were placed in front of them. I actually thought it would be called a draw. I thought it would be called a draw as well, to be honest. I kind of felt like at some point, if they were forced to come back out, that there might have been some kind of agreement a la Mick McCarthy and Ruud Gullit that, like, you're just going to play out a draw here, lads, and that's what's going to happen. The Telegraph this morning, Kane, I don't see myself as undroppable. And if you read nothing else today, James Corrigan in the Telegraph, which I think is carrying the Independent as well. Professional golfers do not fight each other on course. They may bicker, swear, roll their eyes in television interviews and embark on social media feuds, yet when they shake hands in the first and tee it up, the golf gloves do not come off other than for putting. However, he's got an amazing story from the, what's that tour called? The Corn Ferry Tour, where there was an actual fight between a green and a tee box, where one player ended up jumping on the back of the other player, raining down fists on his opponent's head, and the third member of their three ball was about to step in, only for the Da, who was the aggressor's caddy, to threaten him with a putter and say, stay out of this. And the cops were called, and the two lads who were fighting ended up getting kicked out, and one of them got his fee back because they exonerated him of any issues.
Yeah, this is crazy stuff. Did we see the other little thread that Brad Faxon provided us on the Shambo Kepka beef? Letting the cat out of the bag big time here, saying that USGA actually asked Bryson to play with Brooks today, but Bryson declined. So I think it's on the back of the Irish Independent. They're saying Rory McIlroy wades into row. It's not Rory McIlroy. It's just somebody who's closely associated with Rory McIlroy. So I'm not sure will McIlroy thank them for that. But like they were clearly, according to facts, the opportunity was on the table, and Bryson DeChambeau has deprived us of another fight. We could have had that moment. The Corn Ferry Tour gave us the example, and the USPG or the US Open could have followed that correct example, but they chickened out of it.
We should say that both camps have denied what Faxon said, that just in the interest of
come on, let's
keeping the spin of the story going. Can I just ask though, right? How much money would need to be on the table for the two of them to have an actual fight, a boxing match? Like, just think about it, right? And you know, okay, so they're both golfers, and so therefore an actual boxing match where they get into the ring and fight each other. But like, if you just think about which of the YouTube brothers fought Floyd Mayweather at the weekend, they made a lot of money.
It was Jake.
Could they make more money fighting each other? Would they make 50 million fighting? They might.
Well, you see, here's the thing. I'm just looking up here. So the winner of the FedEx Cup gets $15 million. Am I right? I think I'm right in saying that.
Yeah.
And then, so it's a $70 million bonus fund in total, I think. So, yeah, twice that. At least twice that is what they would need. So some backer, Coca-Cola maybe needs to come up with like $60 million here, split it evenly between them, and then throw in like a Cadillac for the winner or something.
Brand new Cadillac.
Yeah.
26 minutes past 8 this morning. I'm delighted to say Jean-Philippe LeClaire is with us of L'Equipe to talk to us about the French football performance last night. Jean-Philippe, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing very fine.
What was your take on how well France played last night?
I mean, for it's not so usual that the French are favorites, especially against the Germans, and that they can cope with the pressure and deliver. So. The French fans were optimistic, but in the back of their mind, they were thinking like, okay, maybe we are too confident, and everything seems so perfect before the tournament. Something is gonna go wrong. So there's a sign of a kind of a relief that it went so well as we. It was a perfect opening for this Euro. I mean, to beat the German like this 1-0 in Munich, that's a perfect start to this Euro for us.
There's a strong feeling that this French team is the best of the teams that are playing at the moment, but that equally we have yet to see them fully express themselves, that they're capable of even more. Is that the sense in France as well?
The sense is that we are the world champion, and now we have Benzema. So, you know, on the paper we are better than we were when we were world champions. So, but you know, football, it's not because you have the best 11 players that you have the best team. And what was very interesting last night is that we had 11 fantastic players, among the best in the world, but they really played as a team. And there were a lot of focus before the Euro on the magic three of Benzema, Griezmann, and Mbappe. But yesterday, the magic three was more Pogba, Kanté, and Rabiot. They really made the difference in the midfield. I think more than up front with Benzema and Mbappe and Griezmann. So that's, for me, that's the best aspect of this game, is that we really played as a team.
At the same time, there was an incredible work rate, I felt, from Karim Benzema. Maybe it's just kind of a wrong analysis beforehand, not necessarily expected of Karim Benzema, but certainly Deschamps seems like he's getting this guy working hard, tracking back, putting in tackles, working for the team, as you say.
Yeah, but it not really surprised me from Benzema, because it's pretty much what he's doing with Real Madrid. It doesn't surprise me from Griezmann, because he's got this sense of playing for the team, and he did some tackling yesterday night that were incredible. But Mbappe, it's not so obvious, because there's a lot of criticism when he played for Paris Saint-Germain that he doesn't really do the effort. He's more like Neymar, He's more like, we are up front and okay, we don't have to work for the team. And even Mbappe last night, did some very good defensive job. So I think the magic three that we had, it was obvious that they were really ready to play. To even to sacrifice themselves sometime, and that's a very nice aspect of that game, and a nice surprise, because I didn't expect Mbappe to defend like this last night, to be honest.
There will be a number of questions from Manchester United fans as to why Paul Pogba plays so well for this French team. But I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it, Jean-Philippe, that, I mean, Kanté and Rabiot are probably a bit better than Scott McTominay and Fred. And similarly, having someone like Varane behind you is probably a step up from having someone like Victor Lindelof behind you. It's just a sense of control that's all around Paul Pogba that allows him to just get the best out of himself, it seems.
You know, it's also his position on the pitch. He gave an interview to us, to L'Equipe, yesterday, and he was not complaining, but he was telling us that his position on the pitch with Manchester United, or at least what the coach is asking him, is to be more defensive. And I think when he played for Manchester United, it's like sometimes they cut his wings, because I think he needs space. He needs to project himself up front. And he's not really able to do that with Manchester United. He was doing that with Juventus, he's doing that with France. So you have, maybe he's got his part of responsibility playing for Manchester United. Maybe he's not the same player in his head. But I think it's also a question of tactic, and maybe Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to wonder if he's using Pogba the right way, because it's pretty obvious that Deschamps does.
It's interesting because Pogba has before spoken with the French media and talked about feeling more comfortable with the French national setup, more familiar, and the last time that he made those statements, it was a massive outcry in Manchester when that happened. So it'll be interesting to see if the same thing happens again, or if his relationship with Manchester United is a bit better at the moment. Can I ask you just generally about the team spirit, because it's obviously a team of world champions, and for Deschamps to take the risk of bringing Benzema back, he had to calculate that this was going to be okay, that the senior players in the team would be acceptable and would view it as a positive. Has there been any negatives? Has it been risk-free, or has it actually just been the correct decision?
There have been some controversy last week. I don't know if you have followed that, because after the last friendly we played against Bulgaria, Giroud started to complain that he didn't get the right cross from Mbappe, and that Mbappe seems more happy to play with Benzema than with him. So there was a start of a controversy, and Mbappe went to the press conference, which is very unusual for him, just 2 days before the game. And he recognized that it was a problem with Gilroy, which was honest and also a bit, a bit worrying. And honestly, it seems that they have dealt with that very well. And I think the biggest ego up front is with Mbappe. And Mbappe really admires Benzema for what he has done with Real Madrid. Maybe he considers him as a bit of an example. So talking about egos, there was also the stories about who's going to kick the penalty, and Griezmann say, "Oh, it's obvious, it's going to be me," and then Mbappe say, "Oh no, it's not so obvious. I would like to kick the penalty as well." So, they are very good players, but they have huge egos, and especially Mbappe. And so far as now, they have been able to deal with that. But we are playing Hungary on Saturday. Looks very easy, but we have to be careful. So we don't know. I mean, we don't want to sound too optimistic at the time, and I think Deschamps is very good at keeping the spirit to keep the spirit of not only his team but all the country, to say, okay, it's only the first game, and it's not because we have won in Munich 1-0 that we have already won the tournament. And you have to remember that for the World Cup 2002, we were the world champion, we were the European champion, we went to South Korea and Japan. We were really, so confident. We were already talking about the second star on a jersey, and we did very bad. We didn't win a single game. So it's always in the back of our mind that we have to be careful and not to consider that the Euro is already won.
Yeah, And the ghosts of Ram and Dominic are always floating around the team bus, I presume.
Exactly. The ghost of Dominic, scary.
Well, at least there wasn't like a Senegal moment last night, which is probably the main thing. Like on the eagle of Kylian Mbappe, I presume that's not seen as necessarily a bad thing. On the same night last night, you would have had, prior to Mbappe, the greatest player to ever play in the European Championships in Ronaldo, and he's always shown plenty of ego. He is the man who will never let Bruno Fernandes touch a penalty kick, for example. So I'm sure this is just part of the competitive spirit, all part of the journey of Mbappe to get to the very top.
Of course. He's very young, but he's very mature. And just to listen to him at the press conference or the last interview he has given to France Football or to L'Observateur, a player at this age, if you remember, even players like Platini or Zidane at the same age, they were not talking like this. They were not dealing with the pressure like this. It's a phenomenon. And but sometimes, especially with Paris Saint-Germain, he's get the sense that he's like Neymar, and he doesn't have to do the dirty job. And with France, it's different. And I think you have to give credit to Deschamps for that, because Deschamps always got this sense of telling him, okay, you are one of my best players, but I'm still the boss. And when you have a coach that has won the World Cup, that has won the European Championship, I think, it's more easy to listen and to obey than when it's a coach that maybe you don't respect enough or that much. I'm not saying that Pochettino or Tuchel are bad coach, but I think that's it's pretty obvious that Mbappe is listening more to Deschamps than he listened to Tuchel before, or to Pochettino now. And I'm not talking about Unai Emery.
Well, taking that into account, then Paris Saint-Germain should make it their absolute priority to ensure that Zinedine Zidane is their next manager then, because it sounds like he's somebody that Mbappe would respect as a coach.
Or Zidane, there was this idea that Mbappe wanted to be coached by Zidane, so that was, I think, in the back of his mind to go to Real Madrid. But now that Zidane is not anymore with Real, we don't know what's going to happen next year. And I think that Mbappe is pretty honest when he said that he hasn't decided yet where he's going to play next year, if it's going to be Paris Saint-Germain or elsewhere. You really want to focus on that Euro, and after you'll see. But it's a big story in France, as you can imagine. Are we going to be able to keep him in a Farmers League, or is he going to go to La Liga or Premier League? And that's going to be the big question after the Euro.
Can I ask you what the perception of the team is from a political perspective and the relationship with the country? Because essentially since 1998, there's been a shorthand about how well France is doing as a society when people talk about the team. And sometimes we invest too much in the symbolism, and other times it seems like the symbolism is bang on. Where are we at the moment?
You have to understand that in 1998, it was the first time that we won the World Cup. We were not ready for that. And there was a sense of naivety where, yes, we was maybe too naive. And I think the situation is very different now. And we don't have this kind of feeling that that football can save the country or can save the economy or can save the French society. The French society at the moment is very divided. It's 1 year to the presidential election. And I think that the French society has never been as divided like this since World War II. There's a lot of tension because of the situation with the virus, but also because of the situation with Marine Le Pen and etc. And people are more like in a spirit now to say, okay, it's a hard time, so let's enjoy football and only football. And if they are black or if they are white or if they are yellow or green, we don't really care. We just want to enjoy the moment. And last night there was a kind of celebration in Paris. Of course, it was very far from what it was back in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or in 1998. But people just want to enjoy themselves, and that's all. And people will celebrate, but any occasion to be happy and to celebrate is good enough. So I don't think there's always this political the try to use it and stuff, but I think people just want to enjoy themselves, and that's it.
Yeah, I think we've kind of all passed through that. It's almost the post-sociological period of football where, particularly international football, where it's actual national teams as opposed to the quasi-national teams that we see playing in the Champions League at this point. My last question for you is about Pavard and the head injury. Concussion is a huge issue in American football, in rugby. It was supposed to be a big issue in football. There were some directives that came out, but we've just seen a player knocked out on the pitch, come back on. What's the conversation amongst your staff and amongst the people who are reading L'Équipe this morning?
We didn't talk. To be honest, it's not a very big issue at the moment in France. I think in football, we should talk more about this. And I'm concerned for Pavard. I don't know exactly where he's now. I mean, what's his condition is, but we have to be careful. But it looks like you guys in Ireland or in England or in the US are more concerned by that, especially in football. In France at the moment, it's more like we are very concerned. It's funny because we are very concerned when it comes to rugby. We are very, very concerned, but when it's football, it's more like okay, it was just a bad moment, and it will recover. It's not so serious and stuff. So we have to look at the situation today. And but I think that it would be risky for him to play. After the shock he received yesterday, it was very impressive. It was even scary at the beginning, and maybe it's more cautious for him not to play against Hungary. And we have players at the back, even if our attack is maybe better than our defense, but still we are more than decent players at the back, and it would be, I think, very wise not to play him on Saturday.
Jean-Philippe, just last one for me. L'Équipe obviously known for their brutal player ratings in general. How did the player ratings go last night?
Excuse me, I didn't get this one.
How did the player ratings for the French players go last night? Everybody's excited to see L'Équipe player ratings.
The what? The ratings. Oh, the ratings.
Yeah.
The best note was for Pogba. He had a 8.
8, okay.
And there was a kind of a debate, should he get a 8 or a 9? And he only had a 8, but 8 is... We tend to... Our ratings is more like the Italian press. So every point counts, and 8 is a very good rating. But Pogba yesterday was amazing, and it's so enjoyable to see him play like this, and with no break, and hope it's going to be like this for the rest of the tournaments.
How difficult is it for you guys to come to the number? Because these are obviously very famous worldwide, and you guys have a reputation for being very strict when it comes to handing out 5, 6 3s, a lot of 2s sometimes.
But it's a debate between the writers at the stadium. We are not involved back at the office.
Right.
So it's between we think that the writers, the reporters at the stadium, it's got the best view to rate the players. So it's only them. Of course, sometimes if we think that a rate is too much, or it's a bit of we say, okay, are you sure you want to give him 2, or are you sure you want to give him 9? But it's pretty much their decision, and sometimes it takes time, to be honest. And we are waiting for the rating. It's back at the office. What are they doing? It's because they are debating like hell. Like, you should get an 8. No, you should get a 7. Oh, it's too much. But it's part of the fun. And it's good to have controversy like this.
But it's part of your heritage and your tradition to be quite hard as well.
Yeah, it's an Italian tradition. I remember when I was a kid, I was reading Gazzetta dello Sport, and there was a thin line between 6 and 4. 6 meant you had a fantastic game, and for that you were ashamed to the nation. so we have this tradition. We are more when it comes to rating, we are more Latin than we are. English footballs get a very big influence in France, but not for ratings. We are more Italian
I think
when it comes to rate players.
I think the British press would have given Pogba 10 out of 10 last night.
Yeah. 100%. Jean-Philippe, great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
Thanks to you.
Au revoir. That's Jean-Philippe LeClaire of L'Equipe giving us some insight into the player ratings. We're too easy, aren't we?
We really are. I've always wanted to ask him from L'Equipe about that. It does seem like, obviously this is probably a deeper conversation with Jean-Philippe another day, but it does seem that there is sometimes a bit of a different rating system for maybe Paris Saint-Germain as well as the national team. Is that unfair? Like 8 is
more harsh or more easy?
Harsher on PSG. I would have thought 8 is large for Pogba last night. Like keep 8 is a very good score.
Yeah.
So I
think
think
the record books.
Perhaps we're actually underrating how good Pogba was last night, even though we've already commended him.
OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Here's a man who's confident about his tips for this week's Virtual Insanity, John Duggan. It is a big one. How are you?
Sharon Owen, good morning.
On a scale of 0 to 10, what is your rating for how Torrey Pines is going to go this week?
In difficulty or in excitement or entertainment or...
You give me the curious amalgamation of L'Equipe, that battle that's raging with the reporters in your head.
I would say an 8.
Right.
I'd say it's going to be maybe 9 in difficulty and maybe like a 7 in entertainment value, and I don't. I'll give it an 8. I'll give it against US Open. US Open are going to be always going to be like 1 under par was the winning score in 2008 when it was at Torrey Pines. Tiger Woods, remember that putt when the knee was damaged and everything, and he put it in the hole and he got to the playoff, the Rocket Mediation, he won it. We got Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy this week, and I'm really buzzed about it and feeling confident. €170 virtually in the last couple of weeks, so I'm going for it. The bullets are in the chamber this week, lads, and we're going for it this week.
I was going to say, you're feeling yourself because the stakes have gone, they've literally and metaphorically ratcheted up. Well,
I've been hanging around even all year, so I did this at Cheltenham as well, and it paid off for me on the final day. I went for winners, and I had 2 big winners, and sometimes you need to just put the foot on the accelerator, and that's what I'm doing. So even if I lose everything this week, I'll only have lost €30 over the last 3 weeks. But I'm surely having picked 6 players, and all the top tipsters in the Racing Post and Sporting Life are doing that, because also what's on your side this week is that bookmakers want to entice people into their shops or virtually into their apps going forward. So obviously there's more attention on this. So they're offering better place terms. Some go into 11 places. So there is more value this week than there would normally be. That's why I'm going for it this week.
Okay. Well, let's get into it. Your headline tip is not your shortest price. That's always interesting to me. So who is your headline tip?
Tony Finau. If you leave Finau, you'll take away a bigger part of me. That was the Chicago song for anybody who remembers that from the 70s. So it is 28-1 Tony Finau, 10 each way. It's a really weird tournament at times, the US Open. We had Michael Campbell and Steve Jones winning this. We had Gary Woodland winning this 2 years ago, only his 4th tour win. We had Lucas Glover winning in 2009, only his 2nd win. Tony Finau is Mr. Consistency. He's the bridesmaid of sport in golf. Only 1 tour win at the Puerto Rico Open in 2016, but top 5s in all 4 majors. Tied for 8th at the US Open last year. Tied for 4th at last year's PGA. Another top 10 at the PGA last month. Tee to green machine. The putting is his Achilles heel. But at Torrey Pines South, in the top 6 in 4 of the last 5 years in the PGA Tour event they played there in February, the Farmers Insurance Open. Tony Finau might just go and have one of these amazing weeks. And at 28-1, he's my headline tip for 10 each way. Number 2, John Rahm. I would have been all over this week about John Rahm if that thing had not happened at the Memorial with the COVID. The 64, Shane Lowry said was one of the best rounds he's ever seen. But John Rahm at 9-1 is very skinny. I would have been all over him, but the preparation might be a bit interrupted. €9 each way at 9-1. Look, he's a great player, great driver of the golf ball. I think the harder conditions this week, the firm and fast conditions, will actually help him. His first win came at Torrey Pines in 2017, second there in 2020. John Rahm is rock solid if he is okay with his head after what happened to him at Memorial. Number 3, Patrick Cantlay, 80 each way, 25-1. Love this guy. I tipped him a couple of weeks ago. won the Memorial Tournament. Whatever happened to Ram, he still faced down Colin Morikawa in a playoff. Shot 62 at Pebble Beach. Grew up in California, likes California golf. Not much form at Torrey Pines, but anybody who contended in 2008 didn't have much form in the tour event there either. So Patrick Cantlay, still underrated, I think, in the game of golf. Shane Lowry, going with one of our own, 40-1 for 7 each way. Playing well, happy with his game, tied for 4th at the PGA, tied for 6th at Memorial, happy with the way he's driving the ball, likes Torrey Pines, has shot 68 there twice, nearly won at Oakmont in 2016. Top 10 at Chambers Bay year before that. Now is a major champion, Shane Lowry. Why can't he win again at 40-1? Number 5, Matthew Fitzpatrick, a player I can't really leave out. Quiet 10th last week in South Carolina. Billy Foster on the bag. His first look at this course, but maybe that's a bad thing because this course is very different to what they play in February. On a Reece Jones design, which this is, he won the US Amateur. And he's won the World Tour Championship twice. Matthew Fitzpatrick, who likes playing in the wind and is a great putter, at 50-1 for 6 each way. And finally, at 200-1 for 5 each way, Charles Schwartzel has won the Masters a decade ago, probably hasn't fulfilled that potential. I could tip a load of players between 50 and 100-1, but Charles Schwartzel at 200-1, who was a third of the Byron Nelson last month, shot a 68 in the final round at the South Course here at Torrey Pines for a tied 18th back in February. And I think he's injury-free. He's happier with his game. So Schwartzel at 200s, Fitzpatrick at 50s, Lowry at 40s, Cantlay at 25s, Ram at 9s. And the headline tip is Tony Finau.
One of the South Africans is going to contend. It's just picking which one, because there's been 3 or 4 of them at the top of the leaderboard at various stages over the last couple of weeks.
Well, Garrick Higgo won on a second start last week at the Palmetto Championship. Garrick Higgo, who'd be winning on the European Tour. West Hazen contended at the USPGA. They're tough. They're mentally tough. This is the thing with the South Africans, and that's why if you're a fancy West Hazen or a Higgo or one of these players, then or Biswadenhouse, who I've been tipping a bit recently. I've also, for anybody who wants to go into OTBsports.com or the app, I've picked a few for the first round leader market.
Yeah.
I know sometimes you've been interested in Troy Marish, who's actually in the field this week in that. So anybody who wants to go on that for a bit of extra. But that's what I think, lads. I don't know if you have a fancy yourselves, but Rory, look, I think it's getting to a stage now where Rory could win this week. He loves Torrey Pines, but he hasn't really been ripping up trees since his win at the Wells Fargo. But it's not becoming a profitable exercise to follow Rory McIlroy blindly in these majors when he hasn't won one for 7 years.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we can put the hands in the wound, then I'll stop being a doubting Thomas when it comes to Rory and the majors at this stage. Friend of the show, Johnny Kennedy, if you don't follow him, you should get on to him on Twitter. He's out in San Diego, essentially documenting shot by shot how Shane Lowry's getting on at the moment. So if you want some insight into what the conditions are like, you should follow him on Twitter from the Long Haul podcast on the Long Haul Bar in New York City. Look, I'm looking forward to it. That's the main thing at this stage. I don't have any of those. I don't have any inkling about any of those outsiders for first round at Torrey Pines. The US Open is such a crapshoot generally that whatever your inkling is and whatever your instinct is on the basis of the form you feel, that's kind of, I think, how people should take this tournament on.
Absolutely. I think it's one of these things that for most US Opens or most major tournaments, you got to be backing players in form. Larry's in form, Cantlay's in form, Finau's in pretty good form, Ram is in form, Fitzpatrick's in form. All these players are in form. Might not work out that way. Mickelson wasn't in form when he won a few weeks ago, but generally you want to be backing players who are happy with the game. You can't find your game at a course like this because it can be a very difficult course, and the score won't be too much under par, I don't think.
All right, John, enjoy it. One last question. How are you getting on with the Euros? Are you enjoying it so far?
I'm loving it, lads. I think Italy surprised me. I think Italy and France would be the best teams I've seen so far. I didn't see Belgium now, but I saw Italy. I thought they were very good. I thought France were very good last night. I thought they played within themselves. It was not a bad match. The Dutch can't have the Dutch. I liked Ukraine, but they didn't do anything. I actually think Sweden will play better than they did against Spain because I think the heat affected them. But I'm enjoying it, lads. But I was what I want to do, I want to go to Germany in 2024. And I was thinking, I only really want to go to a tournament like this at the knockout stage. And it's 2 weeks for the knockout stage because ultimately at the moment, it's a bit of fun, a lot of shadow boxing, but it's not really going to start until we get to the last 16.
I felt last night was kind of the commencement of something real, though, John. Like, I did feel that there was more at stake than just 3 points in a mini league where the 3 best teams may qualify anyway. It felt slightly significant, almost kind of like laying down that marker that if they do meet again later in the tournament, France have a significant psychological edge.
I don't disagree with you. And England are in a bit of a trap here now, lads, because they're probably going to win that group. And what do they face? a Germany, a France, or a Portugal. So really, that's the only thing I'm kind of thinking about at the moment when I'm thinking about the Euros, because I really don't know how any of the other permutations are going to go. But that is the one that is just, it's looming already, you know?
I don't know what you do. Do you throw your last 2 games and...
No.
What do you do?
It's too late to throw it now. If you're going to...
You just think, OK, we're actually strong enough to win these, and if we're going to win a tournament at some point, we're going to have to deal with this?
Yeah. I think so. I don't know what you think, John, but you're going to have to beat one of these teams eventually.
Yeah.
I think that France is just the one team in that group that I would really fear for England against. I think on the evidence of the first hour last night, I mean, maybe Portugal, England would fancy their chances against them, and Germany obviously as well.
Well, if France beat Hungary 1-0, they're going to be second, aren't they? Well, we'll have to see what happens with Portugal, Germany, because Germany they're not the complete shambles that everybody says.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
So there are a lot of subplots already. So I kind of agree with what you're saying, but you will have a situation that Wales could qualify by not playing very well at all in the group, which they're playing like they were pretty poor the other day. So
your point about Germany in 2024, right? Germany. Part of me feels like Germany or Italy should be the eternal host for the Euros, and it should just always be there. But I'm starting to see the benefits of Michel Platini spreading the gospel all over Europe. Imagine what it would be like if we'd already had a game and we'd 2 more games to look forward to, including a quarter-final in Dublin. Imagine what it would do for football here when we're all able to go back out and have mass crowds and big screens and a festival of football. Like, you know, there is a democracy. I understand the reason behind getting all those extra votes and, you know, feathering nests and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why it was done wasn't really, like, for the benefit of football. But I can see how it would work.
Well, it'd be a beautiful substitute for the fact that we can't qualify for tournaments. So to get young kids interested in the sport and to actually go to the Dublin arena, as they would have called it, and watch matches, absolutely. And that's why you'd hope to have a Europa League final and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I think there is merit in it. And I think, unfortunately, we're not going to see how good it could have been because the carnival aspect of it is not going to be here because of COVID, unfortunately. So you can't say, oh, it was a really bad idea because we actually don't know how good it could have been.
Yeah. I wonder if 2028 they'll do it. I think that they should go back to it and see, assuming that there's no pandemic at that stage. John, good stuff. Best of luck. Happy punting. Cheers.
Thanks.
8:57 this morning. If you didn't catch all of John's tips there, don't worry. You can get them on the OTB Sports app, or you can podcast the conversation later on today. Also available on the OTB Sports app. Coming up after 9, we're going to chat more US Open and the Euros with Nathan. Before that, Owen caught up with Wales legend John Hartson ahead of their second game of Euro 2020 against the Turks this evening.
So today at 5 o'clock, Turkey against Wales. We're delighted to say a warm welcome to John Hartson once again. Good morning to you, John. How are you keeping?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
It strikes me that the point against Switzerland was a very good point with the context of the performance and the context of the performance of Switzerland in particular.
I think you're absolutely right. I was actually taken aback a little bit by how well Switzerland played. I thought they got good possession of the ball early on. They controlled, I would say, probably 3/4 of the first half. And then, of course, they took the lead as well. And then Wales did really well. I thought, they showed great spirit to get back into it, considering, a lot of other teams may have folded. Switzerland are probably thinking, well, we should have gone on and got a second or maybe a third. But talking to the guys here as well, down with ITV, they said that there was a few Wales players, like, for instance, Joe Allen needed minutes in his legs. The likes of Joe Morrell as well hadn't played an awful lot of football. Joe Rodon as well, the big centre-half. 3 Joes in the Welsh team. Can you believe that? He hadn't played an awful lot for Spurs. Robert Page went with the back 4. Played Kiefer Moore up top. The lad who's done really well. 20 goals this season for Cardiff. Scored a great header, brilliant movement. So over the piece, when he put all that together, it was a really good point. You look at yesterday, Scotland v Czech Republic have failed to take anything from that game. 1 or 2 other teams have got beat. Poland got beat last night as well. And 3 points can take you through. 3 points could possibly take you through. So I think it's really good for momentum that Wales didn't lose that game. They've got a point. Now, it makes tonight's game against Turkey, all the more so important. I feel it's a must-win game tonight for Wales because Italy on Sunday is going to be extremely difficult. Playing Italy almost away in Rome. Italy have been fortunate to have played all their games in Rome. So that will be a very, very hard game. So I'm thinking, against Turkey, got hammered against Italy, didn't look too good a team for me. Looked as if they can be got at. So big 3 points at stake, and I think it's a must win. I really do, even this early in the tournament.
So how do you go about rattling that Turkey cage once again? Is it the same team? Do you go with the 4-2-3-1 with the same players once again?
Well, I don't think Daniel James was a threat down the left-hand side, especially early in the game. He looked as if he stretched the Switzerland defenders. He got great pace. Gareth Bale, okay, he's done great things for Wales over the years, but I think he would admit that as the tournament goes on now, he'll hope to play a lot better and have more of an effect on the game than what he had against Switzerland. Aaron Ramsey came into it in the last 20 minutes. So I think there's several of our players that will improve. He may well bring sort of Ethan Ampadu back into the team just to shore it up a little bit, at the back or sitting in front of the back four. He's a big physical size. And then maybe, you lose somebody like a Joe Morrell and, you may play, closer to a 4-2-4 or something like that, 4-2-4-1. So, for me, it's just a case of, 4-2-4, isn't it, with the goalie? That's 11. So you may well go and do that, But as I said, it's going to be a really difficult game. Turkey are a crazy football nation, and they'll have an awful lot of fans in Baku, Azerbaijan, very, very close to Turkey. So they will travel very, very strongly.
What's your sense on how strong this Welsh unit is then to, I guess, withstand the wall of noise that are going to come from what is essentially a home support tonight? Like, this was a very tight-knit group, obviously, in 2016, but you talk about Morrell there. Ward in goals, hasn't played a lot of football with his club. Kiefer Moore, obviously, almost a cult hero with Cardiff City. These seem to be guys who are playing above themselves. Is that fair to say, John?
Well, let's not forget that we qualified over a year ago. We beat Hungary in Cardiff 2-0, and Ramsey scored both goals. So we haven't gone through all the rigmarole of playing in playoffs or winning on penalty shootouts. Wales qualified over a year ago. We were ready to go, basically. So the qualification performances were fantastic to get into the Euros. We did it really early. Put our marker down in terms of, right, we're there. We've had a few issues as well. As you know, Robert Page has come in from doing the coach level now. He's making all the big decisions. He's now a manager. And I think when you play for your country and you get opportunities, you've got to play over, above yourself, if you like. That's the standard. International football is very, very difficult, and there's no easy teams out there. All right, Turkey will be difficult opposition, but Italy made them look probably poorer than what they really are, because Italy in Rome, first game to start the tournament, the pressure was there on them to go and win and have a great performance, and it was. They won 3-0. It was a great performance, but you look back at 2016, there's a couple of players that we're missing. We're missing the experience of Joe Ledley. We miss the experience, and he was a rock, by the way, was Ashley Williams. He captained the team to the semi-final. You miss the leadership and, that experience that Ashley Williams would have brought. Centre forward wise, no Hal Robson-Kanu, no Sam Vokes. So, I think we've got some good young players. You've got Levitt, who's at Manchester United. The likes of, Harry Wilson, Dave Brooks, Dan James. There's several young players, and there's Connor Roberts, who played right back against Switzerland the other day. You've got Neco Williams, who hasn't featured yet, who's a really fine player at Liverpool. So we've got a good balance, really, but it all boils down to results, doesn't it? I could be talking to you today, and then tomorrow, all of a sudden, Wales are staring down a barrel. They've got to go and get something if they don't win tonight, even if they draw, it might not be enough, because they go to Italy at the weekend, then probably needing to win. And of course, how does Switzerland, they've still got Turkey to play, they've still got Italy to play. So a lot of it will depend on who takes points off each other. But all Wales can do is take care of their own sort of what's going in with all they can do is control what's happening in their camp, within their own group. They can't control what happens when Italy play against Switzerland, or when the Swiss play against Turkey. You can't control that. You can only control what you were doing. And I think Robert Page has done very well. And as I said, he's got the scope to change it as well. Harry Wilson could play, that sort of Kiefer Moore role, if you like, and they could look more to play around the corner and little nice passes. And get on the ball more when you haven't got that option then of hitting the big focal point, Kiefer Moore. But if I was him, I wouldn't want to come out of the team. Yeah. He just rescued Wales a point. He's a big hero now in Wales, obviously, with all the supporters. So I want to stay in the team. So I don't see an awful lot of changes. Maybe just Ampadu might just come in.
Does the headband that Kiefer Moore was wearing the other day make your heading more powerful or something? Should he keep it on even if his head is perfectly fine tonight?
I don't know about that, but the challenge, obviously, which he went in and hurt his head. He drew a little bit of blood, so I think the protocols now, when there is a little bit of blood, then you have to cover it up. And but no, he looked like Rambo, didn't he? I mean the real Rambo, not Aaron Ramsey. I mean the real Rambo.
The real Rambo, absolutely. Well, I would say Aaron Ramsey is the real Rambo, to be quite honest. So how's it going to go tonight, John? Give us your prediction.
I think Wales will win. Even if I didn't think it, I would say it. So I think it's one of those games. It's like being live on television. You nail it when you're live. When you're doing rehearsals, you're like, no, so how's this going to go? You're a little bit lackadaisical. But then when you go live, you go bang and you tend to nail it. And I think tonight, when it's a must-win game, Wales have, won so many must-win games, over the past, in terms of playoffs and quarterfinals and everything else. And the last European Championships, we beat Slovakia, lost to England, and in the last game we had to beat Russia, and we hammered Russia in the best performance we've done for years, beat them 3-0 on a night where you had to win. So I'm sure that will be mentioned, the Russia game in 2016. But I wish the lads well. They're a nice group of players. Several of the players have not got an awful long left in terms of international football, some of the senior ones. And obviously this is a great experience for the younger players as well, to come through, enjoy the experience of being at a major tournament and then take that on in the future. So Wales continue to be strong and competitive for future international tournaments.
John, best of luck to you and to the nation of Wales in general tonight. We'll chat to you again soon. Thanks a million.
My pleasure. All the best.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Well, Conte Party Euro. If Italy win the Euros and Immobile's top goal scorer, I'll sing the entire song for you in Italian.
Hey!
Myself and Immobile on top, over my shoulder.
Well, perfect.
Those guys are looking at him with big eyes and almost like if he was a god almost. So I think the fact that he came back has certainly brought something very different to that squad in a very positive way, which I think can help the team now go in and win this tournament.
For the best Euro 2020 coverage, download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the OTB Football Podcast.
Invisible Threads, a Go Loud original.
As we celebrate the 6th anniversary of marriage equality, Invisible Threads meets older members of the LGBTQ community who reflect on their journeys and tell their stories. From shame and isolation to conversion therapy, from living with fear to coming out as an older person. Join me, James O'Hagan, for this powerful 8-part series, winner of the first Go Loud Podship.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for the latest betting and stats on every player and team with the Boyle Sports Euro Stats Centre. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports. This is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
9 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM. You're very welcome. If you've just joined us, you missed a really good show. We've just had John Hartson on. Before that, we heard the story of the two young Irish entrepreneurs creating bespoke gloves for women's football, and we've had loads more besides, including a detailed breakdown of how it is that they arrive at those tragically difficult scores they hand out in Lake Keep. So it's been a busy morning and a brilliant morning, and if you get us on podcast, then the thing to do is to subscribe. It would also be very useful for us if you were to leave an old review on iTunes and rate us. Give us the old 5 stars, even if you think we're rubbish. If you want to get in touch with us this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. And you can always leave a comment on the YouTube channel. And our YouTube commenters are going to be delighted because their favourite man, Nathan Murphy, is with us right now. Nathan, how are you?
Morning, Ger.
What's going on?
Is there something I don't know about brewing on YouTube?
No, I don't look at the comments, Nathan. I mean, I don't agree with everything they say most of the time. And they may have got you fairly accurately, but I don't think you should read it just for your own... This is the age of mental health, isn't it?
Sure is. It sure is. Now, listen, Owen's been through this before, so yeah, I'll get some advice from
him. Before we get into the stuff that we are getting you on to talk about, very worrying story from Mayo's perspective on the back of the Independent this morning. Mayo concern as O'Connor faces KO for championship. And it's O'Connor, but it could easily be O'Connors, right? This is Colin Key's story, says that a Mayo County Board statement said the players injured on Sunday are awaiting further review and imaging with the Mayo medical team. Killian appeared to jar his foot and limped out of the action with a lower leg injury. We couldn't work out. I heard some people speculating it was a knee, some others saying it was an ankle. His brother Diarmuid was also withdrawn from the action earlier in the first half, and there is concern in the county over the fitness of both of them. This was also interesting. It was his 100th appearance for Mayo, right? And you're like, okay, 100 appearances for Mayo. 60 of those have been in championship. 40 have been in the league, like massively outweighs championship appearances, even though obviously in the league there's guaranteed 8 games every year. So that's just a mark of how important he is. This would be a disaster if either or both of these aren't fit, from a Mayo playing perspective, obviously.
Yeah, there's no getting away from it. It's catastrophic for Mayo in terms of trying to win in All-Ireland this year if both O'Connor brothers aren't there. When you look at the amount of experience that they've lost over the winter with all the retirements and the transition that they're probably still going through, the two O'Connors with the players they were looking at, along with Aidan O'Shea, Lee Keegan, that had the X factor still, all the experience, who could drag those young players through big, important games. So from Killian, from his leadership point of view, I think all you ever hear about him is how influential he is around that dressing room, the standards that he sets around training. For him not to be there for the championship would be a massive setback. And likewise, if Diarmuid wasn't there and the energy, we're talking about two former young footballers of the year. I don't think Mayo have the depth right now. I don't think even Mayo at their peak of 2016, 2017, I think would struggle to deal with both O'Connor brothers being out potentially for the entire championship. They've obviously both had a lot of injuries over the last couple of years, which was a constant concern. Killian, by and large, the reason he has that stat is he would end up being injured for the league season. They wouldn't rush him back and would return during the summer heroically, be fit and perform. But yeah, it's a massive, massive setback. And because of the way the championship is set up, like we are in that spell of 6-week injury can end your summer more or less. So it didn't look good when he was hobbling off the pitch. You just hope that it is one of those injuries that it was a more jarring thing, and when the swelling goes down that maybe it's not quite as serious. But I would have had Mayo in that group just behind Dublin and Kerry, where I would think Mayo on their day could probably still beat Kerry. I think they would still massively struggle to beat Dublin, but in that group who could get themselves to an All-Ireland final potentially, but without the two O'Connors, I think you're looking at Mayo's season in a very different way.
Yeah, all of a sudden Galway are licking their chops, right?
They are, but Galway've got to go and do it now. Like Galway have, since football returned post-COVID, have been a shadow of the team that we saw 15 months ago, that were emerging, that were gaining momentum, that had so much talent, so much attacking talent. Like they have taken two of the most almighty beatings that have been handed out in the league from Mayo last year and from Kerry this year. They absolutely blew it against Monaghan at the weekend. Like, can they, within the depths of themselves, somehow pull this out? Maybe they need one win. Maybe a win over Roscommon in championship kickstarts them, and then you get to a Connacht final against Mayo. No offence to the people of Sligo, but maybe that's the momentum that Galway need. But right now, you wouldn't have Galway anywhere near the level of a team that could challenge Kerry, Dublin, even if they were to somehow get through Connacht. I think maybe more Roscommon will be licking their lips more than Galway.
But before the O'Connor's injuries, Nathan, were you looking at Dublin potential semi-final matchup, them coming cold out of an 11th consecutive or 12th consecutive Leinster Championship, whatever it is, thinking with the O'Connor's fit we could absolutely take them? Was that where your head was at?
No. I firmly have the belief that Dublin are still a step ahead of everybody else, including Kerry. I think we saw the gap between the two teams last year. Another 2 or 3 years, and with a Cillian O'Connor still being there at 31, 32, Aidan O'Shea likewise, and all these players with 2 or 3 years more experience, perhaps then they'll be in a position to go and beat Dublin. Right now, I don't see it, particularly if the 2 O'Connor brothers are out. Dublin coming in cold? Do Dublin come in cold? I'm not quite sure they do.
I don't know. Pat Spillane making a compelling case that Kerry's time is now or never. Literally never. This will be it. This is the last chance. You may as well throw the hat at it.
Until next year, we're in the exact same position again, and it's the same 5 teams who will be competing with Dublin.
All right, it's 16 minutes past 9 this morning. We actually got Nathan on to talk about golf because obviously the US Open is getting underway on Thursday at Torrey Pines in San Diego. One of the major subplots has been the Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau beef. We think... Well, I don't know. Have we decided that the beef is real? Have we done a proper beef is real? Do we think
yeah.
It's real? Okay, right. Apparently DeChambeau is doing his best to convince us all that it's all just a bit of fun.
No, I think it's fun. There's a point where it's great banter. I personally love it. I think that, as time goes on, I hope, on the weekend we can play against each other and compete. I think it'd be fun and be great for the game.
Just banter, Nathan.
It was just banter, eh? I think it's gone beyond banter at this stage. I think Bryson might like it to be banter. I think there's a certain lack of self-awareness with Bryson, which is probably what irks Brooks Koepka and an awful lot of the players out on tour. I think on Brooks' side, he genuinely has a real disdain for Bryson DeChambeau. I think he has taken it too far, Koepka. While I love this in so many different ways, and I love the back and forth, and I want it to keep going, I do think the offering of free drink to the fans that were thrown out for shouting Brooksy at Bryson was a little bit too far, because they're going into a major championship this weekend. Some people are idiots. Some people will turn up, have had a few drinks, and think, if Bryson's in contention, if I shout the right thing at the right time on his backswing and he blows the tournament, I'm going to be a bit of a hero. I'm on Brooksy's side. And maybe that's over-egging it. Maybe I'm exaggerating, and that simply won't happen. But I just think, fair enough, have a go at each other, don't like each other, have your back and forth, but almost encouraging fans to have a go at the other one in golf isn't exactly ideal. Like, golf is generally played in complete silence. If you suddenly have people shouting at you, it's massively, massively off-putting. It'd be brilliant. It'd be one of the biggest golfing moments of the year if they somehow ended up together over the final couple of rounds, even if it's early in the day. There'll be more people watching the two of them than anybody else. I can understand completely if Bryson was offered the chance to play with Brooks and he turned it down. There is no benefit. It would be an absolute circus. And Bryson is the defending US Open champion, produced one of the great US Open performances to win at the end of last year. He is going here with a genuine chance of being a back-to-back US Open champion, and anything that would distract him from that, he needs to stay away from. So I think he would have been really silly to agree, even with all the PIP money that they are putting around for the highest profile players that surely Brooks and Bryson have done quite well with over the last few months.
Just explain the PIP money.
This was something that came in the last couple of months. It's a $40 million fund for basically the top 10 players on social media. They have a range of different criteria, but it's essentially the more marketable you are, the more of this fund you will get. It's a response to this Premier Golf League, which is backed by Saudi Arabian money, who are trying to break away from the PGA Tour, which will be 18 tournaments a year, guaranteed massive pot of money. They're trying to bring over the best players in the world. It hasn't really got off the ground at all yet. No player has said they'll go. The PGA Tour have had to react from that. They've said that anybody who plays one of these events is thrown out of the PGA Tour, won't be allowed playing majors. But also it has given the current players an awful lot of leverage. And they have gone in, and PGA Tour have signed $1 billion TV deal quite recently, said, we want more of that cash. We are the stars here. So they came up with this system that will essentially just reward the best. So the players who are already earning the most money will now be given even more money for interaction on social media, for the amount of time they're covered on the television. All the stats basically veer towards the guys that we see all the time anyways, with the addition of somebody maybe like Ricky Fowler, who hasn't shown great form over the last couple of years, dropped out of the top 100 in the world quite recently, but is still, I would imagine, in the top 5, certainly in the top 10, and will be getting some of this bonus money,
right?
Because of his profile and his personality and his likability factor.
So,
it seems to be skewed on positive publicity, because like the most public golf event of the year so far has been Tiger's crash.
He's probably not getting...
Tiger, I would say, will still maybe have to play a certain amount of tournaments, but Tiger would still be number 1 on this list every single year. But Rory McIlroy will be number 2 or number 3, and if suddenly there's an extra $10-15 million bonus for not having to do a whole amount, well, that's probably keeping the Saudi Arabian money at bay.
Okay. Would that perhaps lead you to conclude that some smart people in the background might be stoking this, and therefore this might be fake?
I don't think it's fake. I think it is probably being elevated to another level by those smart people in the background who are telling both Brooks and Bryson, actually, this is doing no harm for your profile, for the game of golf. Like, people are interested in this. People who don't sit down every Sunday night know about this now.
Yeah, and that's not nothing. Like, I'm sure there are people in the golf world who are holding their nose at the whole thing and saying this is terrible, this isn't golf at all. But actually, this is exactly what golf needs. This is the embodiment of the 16th, the waste management. Is it the 16th, the waste management, when they have the... Yeah. That's what... Open, yeah. This is the next step of that. Like, this is their version. And I was talking half facetiously earlier on about, like, what are the odds of the two lads actually getting in a ring and selling pay-per-views? I was looking at the numbers for... How many pay-per-views do you think did we do for Floyd Mayweather against Logan Paul?
Oh, it was Logan. I thought it was Jake. I'm not sure.
$2 million? Was it?
A million at 50 quid a pop. That's 50 million from that, and then there was other like tickets and there was other income on top of that as well. So Mayweather apparently made 65 million from that fight alone. That's more pay-per-views than Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder. Like, which was a brilliant fight. Like,
it'd be a shock, but you're dead right. Like, that sort of money can influence players. You'd love to see it, because you're talking about two big men there. You're talking about two very big men in Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka.
It started out as like this ludicrous notion in my head, and then you're like, actually, the world we live in right now, Floyd Mayweather, the greatest boxer of all time, and also, one of humanity's great villains, made 250 million from the McGregor fight, and then makes 65 million from this. Like,
yeah, I think the risk of injury will be too much for that to possibly happen. But on the greater point, there are a lot of people who aren't touching at this and thinking this is bringing a whole new level of fans. And golf is going that way. You're right. Tournaments around the world are trying to replicate what they have at the 16th at the Phoenix Open. That sort of atmosphere, the rowdiness, the raucousness, the getting rid of the silence of golf. That actually, this thing that was so pure and made it so enjoyable and was such a part of our summers of sitting down for a long 6 hours at the Open Championship, and it was a calm, relaxing affair, that actually people now want to be entertained. And we've seen Super Sixes, we've seen all sorts of alternative forms of golf come in. I think bit by bit we're going to get away from that silence, that more and more fans will be encouraged to make noise. Golfers will grow up in an environment where they're used actually to having to hit golf shots with a lot going on around them. And absolutely, Brooks and Bryson are doing well out of this. I do genuinely think that Brooks Koepka has a extreme dislike of Bryson DeChambeau, and I suspect he's not the only one. Like, DeChambeau has worked his brand brilliantly. So first he comes on to tour and he is the scientist, and he has sort of like been in your tech drawing class back in school for the junior cert. He had all that sort of gear on the putting green, working out his angles, and it gave him a point of difference. And a point of difference, it seems, on the PGA Tour is the worst thing you can possibly have, because everybody's going around on you and they don't like you to step out from the crowd. So there was a wariness of him. He built that brand. So the second you saw Bryson DeChambeau was the scientist. Then he returns after lockdown. He has bulked up massively. He has put on a huge amount of weight, a huge amount of muscle, and suddenly he can hit the ball further than anybody else. yet when you went down into the statistics, he wasn't hitting the ball that much further than anybody else at all. And actually, he was just better at talking about it. He is brilliant at describing what he does, at talking everybody through. He does long Instagram videos of his workout routine. So he sells himself, and he takes a few more risks. He plays up to it at times. So at the Arnold Palmer Invitation at Bay Hill, he goes for the par 5 straight across the water, and he's raising his hands and he's celebrating. It's brilliant to watch. Like, you are getting excited watching this. Other players could, maybe 2 or 3 other players on tour could try that shot, but they just don't want to because it's not the sensible shot to play. But when you look at the stats of his driving distance for the season, when you look at the stats of the major so far, he's not massively longer than a Rory McIlroy. So he's very good at selling himself, and that is bound to be pissing off a lot of the other players with the amount of attention he's getting.
And if they're all getting paid now extra for that type of attention, then this is what's going to happen. They're effectively being incentivized not to worry about winning the tournament, but to worry about having those 2 or 3 moments over the course of the 4 days that are going to end up going viral on social.
But that is golf, and what was happening with the Premier Golf League, it was in some ways very similar to the Super League. So when you take a step back from the Super League in football not working, you're left with a Champions League that isn't exactly perfect and is going to veer towards that Super League format. Likewise with the Golf Premier League, you think, no, you're going up against the great institutions of golf. And then you look at what's happened in the PGA Tour, where everything is massively incentivized with money for nothing. So the FedEx Cup is just, again, an excuse. It's the end of season playoff that the player who's already won the most money is now going to be rewarded for that with $15 million even more.
Yeah.
Like, we've had with Troy Merritt, who's on Golf Weekly. Troy Merritt won this Kodak Challenge about 10 years ago, which was a season-long competition where they would pick one hole on one tournament every week, and that score would count to an overall score at the end of the season. And he won £1 million for winning it.
Nice.
He didn't even realize he was properly in contention until the last 4 or 5 tournaments, and suddenly he's not concentrating as much on winning the tournament as actually winning this competition. Now, he ended up in a bizarre scenario where on the final tournament, he got into a playoff for the Kodak, and he holed a putt on 18 that kept his card for that season, went from keeping his card to playing in the Kodak playoff and winning £1 million straight afterwards. But golf there's several of those type of incentives that are out on the PGA Tour and on the European Tour at the moment to just give the best golfers more and more money. Never mind getting into appearance fees, which quite often, particularly in that Middle Eastern swing, the appearance fee is far greater than any fee you would get, any prize you would get for winning the tournament.
Yeah, and appearance fees are kind of a bit of a dirty little secret that you're not supposed to do, but it actually all happens, and it's not public, essentially, but it's kind of accepted that it's going to happen.
The appearance fees?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people would realise when Dustin Johnson suddenly rocks up in Saudi, that there's a reason he's there. But he is probably getting several $1 million for that. The prize fund for the tournament is probably $1 million, $1.5 million, and they're offering that to 7 or 8 of the top players. So yeah, it is a very dirty little secret that is out there, but the money is there. Saudi is obviously a very different issue from a lot of the places that they're getting offered this money, but. Yeah, if you are in the top 20 in golf right now, it is a very lucrative place, and it's only going to get better. Despite COVID, despite everything that's happening, golf seems so far to be pretty much unaffected.
Yeah, the Saudi Arabia issue is obviously huge, but Donald Trump his administration was locking kids up in cages on the border with Mexico and separating them from their parents, potentially in some cases forever, because some of those kids have not been reunited. And nobody's any human rights issues with going playing in America. There's definitely
most of these golfers have no issue playing with Donald Trump.
Yeah, the Saudi thing is there's a little bit of whataboutery when it
there is, but you see the effect of that sport washing with the Premier Golf League was when it first emerged. The entire conversation was the Saudi money. It was, well, actually, this couldn't happen because the players surely wouldn't go and take the Saudi money. Whereas now that it's come back up again, there's very little mention, actually, of where the money is coming from. It's the debate about what it means for the future of the game, what it means for the PGA Tour, what it means for the European Tour. So the conversation shifts very quickly.
Yeah. There is a second golf league that isn't Saudi money as well, up out at the moment as well, right? Separate to the Saudi money, isn't there?
Yeah, there's, to be honest, I don't think either of them are going to get off the ground anytime soon. The fact that the European Tour have gone in with the PGA Tour and have this strategic alliance means that they're in a very strong position around protecting their brand. And also the PGA Tour are just going to keep throwing money at the best golfers. I say this new initiative is basically 40 million quid for the best 10 golfers in the world for doing nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so briefly, we've got a couple of minutes to talk about the actual tournament itself. What's going to happen?
Well, I'm really excited about it. Then you sit down and you look at the tee times again and you remind yourself that a lot of the players aren't teeing off until 10:30 tomorrow night. We are in California, in San Diego. There's an 8-hour time difference. So this is going to be late Sunday night, probably 1:30, 2 a.m. by the time this actually finishes up. It's not the most exciting golf course in the world, Torrey Pines. It did provide one of the greatest major moments ever when Tiger Woods hold that putt on 18 to get to the playoff and then won it on one leg against Rocco Mediate back in 2008. That's the last time it held a US Open. This was Tiger's course. That was his 8th win at Torrey Pines. I was listening to John earlier. I agree on John Ram. He produced the performance of the season so far in the first 3 rounds at Memorial. He absolutely loves this course. Had his first PGA Tour win here in 2017. Top 10s in both majors so far. He switched clubs at the start of the season, moved to Callaway, switched ball. Now seems actually a lot more comfortable with that. You'd have to assume with what we saw at Memorial, he is fully on board with everything that he's doing with Callaway. And he seems to have reacted, looking at his press conference yesterday, seems to have reacted well to what happened at Memorial with COVID and with the way he was told the news, was totally accepting that the PGA Tour had no other way of going about this, that he knew when he was deemed a close contact at the start of the week that this was a definite possibility. Yeah. So he seems to have taken it in stride. So John Ram is a worthy favourite, and he would love to see him win it because just that passion, and without going down the stereotypical Spanish golfer route, like I know some people want to knock it out of him. Like there's an anger in there at times. There's a breaking of clubs, but he wants this, and he's just such a all-round brilliant golfer. He's won on every type of golf course. We have a strong connection with him here in Ireland as a 2-time Irish Open winner, won all around the world. He deserves to win a major, and this one is set up beautifully for him. The other player I really like, Patrick Reed. So, like Tiger back in 2008, Patrick Reed has already won here earlier in the season. I backed him at the Farmers Insurance Open. He loves putting on these Oonagh greens, which is a word and saying you're going to hear a lot over the next while. So the majority of the greens on the West Coast are this type of grass. It's very bumpy. If you look at Tiger's putt in 18, the one he rolls in from about 15 feet, it bobbles all the way into the hole. So Patrick Reed is generally brilliant at them. We know he has an absolute sensational short game. Like after he won the Farmers, Brooks Koepka's talking about how it's just a joke how good he is around the greens. And he's a decent price, I think, Patrick Reed as well. Like Rory is coming in as a complete dark horse, like barely being mentioned. He's only played twice since he won at Quail Hollow, the PGA. Nobody knows where he is because everything's been done in the background, working away with Pete Cowan. Maybe he emerges and everything clicks into place, but it's hard to make that case without having actually seen it. So okay. I think this is set up to be a really good major. The type of course it is, a traditional US Open style, long rough. We'll have all the best guys. And one more for you, Jerry, because I know you're like a big outsider.
Yeah.
Jimmy Walker, former US PGA winner. He's about 500 to 1. I'm not saying he'll win it. Back in first round leader. He had Lyme disease for the last 2 or 3 years, fallen off the radar completely. But he is brilliant on these greens. He's brilliant on the West Coast. And he had his first top 10 in 3 years last time out at the Memorial.
500 to 1, Lyme disease. Where else would you get it, Nathan? Ignore those YouTube commenters. You always bring it. Thanks very much for that. We'll have more from Nathan, of course, on Golf Weekly this week. You should subscribe to the Patreon. You can get it on patreon.com/Golf Weekly or OTBsports.com/Golf Weekly. Eric Donovan's on the show tomorrow. The football pod with Paddy and Andy, and TV picks with Sue as usual. Right now, we're bringing you last night's chat with John Gonzalez about Allen Iverson. We are here talking about practice.
Now then, we're going to talk some NBA. So the Philadelphia 76ers are back in the NBA playoff hunt this year. They're the #1 seed in the East, which is sparking memories of 20 years ago when MVP Allen Iverson led them to the 0-1 NBA Finals, where ultimately they lost to the Lakers. Iverson still an iconic figure all these years later, transcended sport, crossed into the mainstream, into pop culture. To discuss, we are going to our #1 Philly fan, John Gonzalez of The Ringer. Hey, John.
Hey, Joe.
So we'll talk Philly 2001 in a few moments' time. But let's go back 20 years, because Allen Iverson is one of those names which even the most casual NBA fans know. He's got his own documentary on Netflix and several others. Besides, a character full of contradictions and quirks. And we should probably start with the fact he's an unbelievably talented player as well, because that can get sidelined a touch. Let's just start with some of the good stuff, and you know, it can be disrespectful to go straight into the other stuff. So 14 seasons in the NBA, 11-time NBA All-Star. He was All-Star MVP and NBA MVP in that 0-1 season 20 years ago. He was, and I think he was in Kobe's year, he was the #1 draft pick. He was the Rookie of the Year, 96, 97. In 2008, for instance, ESPN said he was the 5th greatest shooting guard of all time. And at 6 foot, I think Michael Jordan said, thank God he was small, because otherwise this guy could have been the one. So tell us about Allen Iverson, the player, maybe to kick things off here, John.
Yeah, that was a great summation. He was fantastic. He was a few years older than I am. And you mentioned Kobe Bryant, who was a year younger than me, and we went to a neighboring school, grade school. So at that time when they were both coming up, I got a front row seat to some of the great basketball players of all time, and didn't really realize that they were going to become that. I mean, I think that everybody realized that Allen Iverson was a special talent, but for him to become what he became at the size, as you mentioned, barely 6 foot. I mean, I'm under 6 foot, and I think Allen Iverson is about my height, and certainly slim. So for him to do what he did as a scorer in the NBA for as long as he did it, and also take the punishment, Joe, that he took. I mean, time and time again, he would pop back up off the floor after getting knocked down. And let's not forget that now in today's NBA, most of that physicality that we saw in the late 90s and early aughts, it's frowned upon now. Back then, if you were going to the hole in a playoff game, you expected to take some significant contact, and Allen certainly did that, and he always popped right back up. So to see him in his formative years when he was in his prime was something special.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting that you add that perspective. So it is hard to know nationally how somebody compares. I mean, you know he's Philly good, and you know he's good, but you don't know he's going to be Allen Iverson.
Yeah, and similarly with Kobe. I mean, I got to see him in high school and didn't realize he would go on to become one of the great players of all time. But with Allen Iverson, I think like there was more of a flash. With Kobe, it needed some like early development before he really took off like a rocket. With Allen, he came into the league and there was so much hype around him. There was expectation, and he met that and exceeded it in a lot of different ways. But there were those flashes, Joe, early on where you thought, okay, maybe this could be somebody who's not just a #1 pick and not just special, but potentially a Hall of Famer. I'm sure you and everybody who watches your show knows or remembers that play where he crossed over Jordan. For me, in his rookie year, that was the moment when I thought to myself, oh, wow, we could be onto something here.
So did you see him play in high school? A lot of games, a handful of games?
Iverson, I saw a couple of games because back then it was tape, there wasn't YouTube or internet was limited. Yeah. So I saw a couple of games. I certainly saw all of his college games because, again, he was, I believe, a year or two older than me. So I was very familiar with his time at Georgetown. And he was special. He was special then, and there was a lot of anticipation about what he could be because he was so dynamic. He was so quick. I had never seen somebody. It's one thing to be quick without the ball, Joe, but to be able to move as quickly as he did with the ball, that I think is what put him above everybody else.
Okay, so it was his dynamism, it was his speed. That's what made him stand out.
That, and also, I mean, there's that ethos in Philadelphia where you like somebody who's sort of an underdog, right? He's undersized, he's gritty, he has that sort of attitude that Philadelphia likes, that mentality that it's us against the world. He always played to the fans. I think when you incorporate all of that into that package, he was the perfect player for Philadelphia. He would have been a star anywhere, but I think the Philadelphia really wanted somebody to call their own and say, hey, that's our guy. And he returned and reciprocated that love. And even to this day, Joe, when he goes back to Philadelphia, he's the biggest thing going.
Yeah, I was reading that. So in Philadelphia terms, this guy's God.
Yeah, I mean, so what was it? Right before the pandemic hit in 2020, I went back to Philadelphia to write a story about Allen Iverson. It had been 10 years since he had played in the NBA. And he was sort of just casting about. And his job, functionally, was to go to games in Philadelphia and be Allen Iverson. He spent the entire game going from suite to suite, shaking hands of fans, taking pictures, glad handing, saying hello to people, just being himself. And I can't tell you, like, there were kids who never saw him play, Joe, and yet they all know about Allen Iverson, and they were dying to say hello to him and get a picture with him.
Okay, because you wrote in that piece in The Ringer that there's a deep and enduring attachment and affection between Iverson and the city that can be hard to fully explain or appreciate unless you're from here. So it's that kind of a bond. And presumably he's going around shaking all these fans' hands because, yes, he loves the fans, but he's making a ton of money on the side.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. The money is definitely a component of it for sure. But I think with Allen as well, I mean, we all know about, you were mentioning some of the things that were less savory for Allen Iverson, and he had some money problems and some marital problems. And, you know, he has a deal with Reebok where he's supposed to get a certain chunk of money after he hits 50 in 2030. So the money definitely helps for sure. But I think with Allen, the big thing is the adoration. I mean, he wants to be Allen Iverson, and he wants to be loved as Allen Iverson. And the number one place for him to be those things is in Philadelphia, even to this day.
And so, like, this is potentially a silly question given all the awards he's won and the standards he set. Is he in any way regarded as an unfulfilled talent with all the extracurricular activities, or, you know, a few clashes with coaches, which we'll come to? But, like, did this guy hit the heights he should have always hit?
Well, I mean, I think that there were moments that he'd like to have back, certainly. And then as with most athletes, professional athletes, there are always, you know, tarnishes or blemishes on their record, or even with just human beings in general. I mean, none of us are perfect, right? I'm sure that if we all were truly honest about our lives, we'd say, well, I wish I could have done that differently. And also on the court, right? I mean, he never won an NBA championship. However, I think all the time about that 2001 team that you had mentioned. If you look at that team, there were no other scorers on that team, I believe, who eclipsed more than 11 points per game. Allen Iverson had a lot of role players around him, but he put that entire team on his back. And they were good role players. I mean, there were guys who were great defenders. Aaron McKee was an excellent teammate and passer. Eric Snow, you know, was a fine NBA point guard for that time. And of course, you had Dikembe Mutombo, who was a great rim protector. But none of them were transcendent talents like Allen Iverson. So I think when you really go back and look at that team, for him to even get them to the finals and win that first game against the Lakers, who were expected to dominate and sweep that was a significant thing.
Yeah. And even in the games then against the Lakers, which they subsequently lost, he was putting up big scores.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can ask Allen Iverson to do, and I think that he acquitted himself really well in that series. But if we're looking for things to knock Allen Iverson for, I mean, like, he wasn't a great defender. We all know about his issues with not playing when it wasn't actual game time, you know, what kind of teammate he was. I think he was a good teammate as a human being, but maybe always not the guy who made other guys considerably better. But he was, for whatever faults he had, a supreme competitor. And I keep going back to this. For him to do it at the size that he was and take the punishment that he did and to continually play, I mean, he was very rarely out. And he was always a guy who was going to show up for the game and compete to his utmost. I mean, there are people, we've all seen it in every sport, who maybe on certain nights, you know, they're not giving their best effort. I rarely saw that from Allen Iverson. Okay,
which maybe explains why he was so irritated when, and you can give us the context here, I'm not entirely sure of it, it's the clip that's more famous in some ways than the context. This is after the 2001 season where he's been phenomenal. I think then, you know, the following years are years of frustration. So his coach accused him or outed him for missing practice, and he goes to town here in this epic rant, which goes on for a very long time. We're not going to play the full thing, but I think a lot of basketball fans are very familiar with it. So here's Iverson reacting to the fact that he's been outed for missing a practice.
If I can't practice, I can't practice, man. I'm hurt, I'm hurt. But it's easy to talk about. It's easy to sum it up when you just talk about practice. We sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice, not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that, man? We're talking about practice. I know I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to lead by example. I know that. And I'm not shoving it aside, you know, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We're talking about practice, man. When you come in the arena, And you see me play? You see me play, don't you? Absolutely. You see me give everything I got, right? Absolutely. But we talking about practice right now. But it's an issue that you're... How the hell can I make my teammates better by practicing?
So he's got an ego.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely does. And I think, like, that's a rant that will live with him forever. For the rest of our days, we'll all talk about that, right? But contextually, I think that there are some important things there. First, and this is something that didn't come to light until years later, his friend had previously died right before that, right? So he was going through some things, I think personally, mentally, emotionally, that led to that moment and led for him to, one, miss practice, and then two, sort of vent to the media that this was not as important as maybe everybody else was making it out to be. In addition to that, you heard him mention in there that, you know, practice is one thing, but for games, he showed up and gave his utmost effort every single time out. I think that was the essence of Allen Iverson, that there were things that mattered to him more than anything else, and that was playing actual games of basketball, and maybe practice wasn't always given his full and undivided attention. Although, again, I think contextually what happened with his friend really did impact him there. But then also, Joe, if we think about the time period and the way that teams used to practice relative to where they practice now, if we put Allen Iverson in today's era, this wouldn't be an issue at all. Joe, I can't tell you how many times I go to practice and players aren't practicing or practice is canceled completely because they're doing load management and they want to make sure that guys are fresh. Back then, in the early aughts, when Larry Brown was the coach, and Larry Brown is a phenomenal Hall of Fame coach, and all credit to him, but he practiced in a very old school mentality way where he would have practice every day and they'd be long. Okay. And that takes a lot of energy out of superstar athletes. So I think, like, that was all building to a head for a long time. And if we had flash forwarded that moment, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Okay, fair enough. So 20 years ago, it's the anniversary of this 0-1 season where he's MVP and he picks Philadelphia up and carries them on his back. So if that's kind of the halfway point of his 10 years with the 76ers, 96, 97 Rookie of the Year, gets to the NBA Finals 0-1. Post 0-1 to his finale 06, the next 5 years don't seem to go amazingly well for various reasons. Like, for instance, I was doing bits of reading. See, I'm not as familiar with all this, so this is kind of new to me in certain ways. Like Chris Ford, for instance, one of the interim head coaches, they seem to have so many clashes. Iverson suspended for missing practice. There's a theme there, I guess. Fined for failing to notify Ford that he wouldn't be attending a game because he was sick. He refused to play in another game because he felt, quote, insulted that Ford wanted Iverson to come off the bench as he was working his way back from injury. And so, like, that's kind of a messy situation. Do the years after 0-1, is that just, it's still him having to carry the team and he's just not quite able to do it because, frankly, it's a damn hard thing to do? Is that a maybe blunt but fair summation of his 5 years post 0-1?
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. I think if we were looking at Allen Iverson's time in Philadelphia, or even just his time in the NBA, the high water mark for sure was that 2001 season. From the moment that he entered the NBA up through that moment where they went to the NBA Finals and lost in 5 games to the Lakers, he was on the ascendant. And then, not to say that he necessarily descended immediately, but for sure there was at least a plateau, and then we saw him sort of ebb afterwards after he was traded. I think those moments where you were talking about the clashes with the coaches post Larry Brown, with Chris Ford, with the organization, where things started to go a little bit sour there, it was building to a point where clearly Allen, as you mentioned, he has an ego, and rightly so. I mean, he wasn't just a transcendent basketball player. We have to remember the era that he was in. He was a transcendent figure in a pop culture sense. I mean, in terms of, like, if you had mentioned the most famous people in the Black community or in the pop culture community, music, sports, I mean, like that whole meld where, rappers want to be athletes, athletes want to be rappers. Allen Iverson was at the top of the list for everybody. Everybody wanted to get close to Allen Iverson. So he was a seminal figure in the 2000s where if you could, get Allen to show up at your event or be in your music video, or, you're sitting courtside and you're hanging out with Allen, that gave you cultural cachet. So I think that was a component as well, where he goes, hey, I'm Allen Iverson, and you want me to come off the bench after an injury? Like, what sense does that make? And also, forgetting about just the ego, on those teams, he was still the best player until he left. I mean, Andre Iguodala had come in towards the end of Allen Iverson's tenure in Philadelphia, and Andre is an exceptional player, and I think didn't get his due in Philadelphia. But he's still Allen Iverson. So there's a component for sure that I understand. Although I think if you went back and asked Alan, he'd say that, yeah, I mean, maybe he'd like to do some things differently towards the end there too.
He had a very interesting life as well in so many ways. I mean, this could have all gone horribly wrong. He was born to 15-year-old mother at the time. I read like a father figure of his arrested in front of him at the age of 13 for dealing drugs. And then at 17, before this amazing career takes off, he's arrested and sent to jail. And at a bowling alley, his group were there, supposedly quite loud, told to be quiet. All hell breaks loose. A woman has a chair smashed over her. Iverson goes to jail. And then, amazingly, video emerges. Allen Iverson left the bowling alley before this fight even started.
Yeah, and Joe, you and I have talked a lot on your show here about cultural issues in America, societal issues, racial issues, and I think that was a flashpoint. And at the time, Allen was branded with this really broad brush, right? He must be a troublemaker. He was at a bowling alley, he got in a fight, or his friends got in a fight. He went to jail. He must be a bad person. Well, John Thompson in Georgetown said, well, no, we know that we've had, and this was at a time when people weren't really talking about all these issues. I mean, we spent the last year in America having a conversation that was long, long overdue, and you and I were part of that conversation here, but it like wasn't really part of the firmament at the time. And I think John Thompson, who was somebody who had lived and experienced it and was the head coach of Georgetown at the time, said, no. There's often more to the story here than just one side about a group of young black teenagers in a bowling alley who were told to be quiet. That sounds a little strange, right? That all of a sudden it was just one side who was acting up and decided to get in a fight unprovoked. And so John Thompson was really the one who dug to the bottom of it, realized that Allen wasn't a bad guy, that he might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and maybe some things happened that shouldn't have, but that he was sort of railroaded in that incident. And it took Allen a long time to get past that incident, not just himself, but also the way that people perceived him. And I think that it bothered him, and rightly so.
So you mentioned his place in culture at the time, I suppose, for want of a better word. And if anyone watched The Last Dance, I mean, one of the things which strikes you is Michael Jordan is always wearing these pristine suits, you know, very, very expensive tailored suits and beautiful ties and immaculately presented. And so Iverson has come into the league in 96, 97, so they're contemporaries. And you mentioned, you know, their clash on the court that time. So Iverson seems to draw attention because he goes the opposite way. He's wearing baggy clothes, he's wearing jewellery, he's getting tattoos. Like, I see he's been asked about his hair. I mean, Lord knows where this quote comes from, or the question that prompted this quote, but he says, I didn't get cornrows because of no thug shit. My whole thing with the cornrows was I would be on the road, barbers in different cities would mess my hair up, so I figured, shit, if I get my hair cornrowed, I wouldn't have to worry about that. It's a long season. Then that turned out supposedly to be some thug thing. And I know he was upset as well when Hoop, an official NBA publication, they airbrushed his jewellery and his tattoos from its January 2000 cover of the Philadelphia 76ers. So you've got Jordan and the boys wearing their suits, and you've got Iverson in baggy clothes, jewellery, tattoos, airbrushed out of an official NBA publication, being asked about his haircut and its links, I guess, with gang culture. Talk to us about all of this. I mean, that makes him kind of very interesting figure.
I mean, all of the things that we're talking about right now, I mean, like, if any of that was done now, rightly, you know, there's a large conversation in America about cancel culture and things of that nature, which is complete and utter nonsense. But, like, if somebody had airbrushed Allen Iverson's tattoos or taken away his jewelry now, immediately there'd be a media storm saying, why would they do that? That's black culture, erasure, and wrongly so, right? But at the time, all those things that we're talking about weren't as charged for whatever reason, but should have been. I mean, the word thug is hypercharged. Allen Iverson wasn't a thug. He's a professional basketball player and one of the most famous athletes on the planet. He wore his hairstyle in a way that people were wearing their hairstyles then. And even Kawhi Leonard now, and some people have gone back to cornrows, but at the time, jewelry and baggy clothes and sneakers, and that was part of pop culture and young culture, right? That's how people dress. That's how I dressed at times. And I think, like, he was a transcendent figure on that front as well. Fashion-wise, he was at the forefront of this is the way that people are dressing who are young and, like, you know, paying attention to fashion of the era. And that was a problem for David Stern, too. David Stern implemented a fashion code because of Allen Iverson. When I wrote that piece about Allen, I went back and talked to a bunch of his contemporaries, Elton Brand among them, Elton Brand, who's now the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers. And he said that that rule was put in place because of Allen Iverson, and that black players across the league who respected and loved and followed Allen Iverson thought, wow, not only is he somebody who is setting trends, you know, for people who aren't in basketball, but he's changing rules in basketball because of who he is. That's how powerful he is, even though the rule was designed to thwart him in those efforts.
I suspect he didn't abide by that rule.
It wasn't his favorite. I mean, he used to say all the time, suits aren't my thing, right? Like, just because I dress the way that I want to dress, and he still dresses that way. Like I saw him, 2 years ago when we hung out, and he dresses the way that he wants to dress, and he looks like Allen Iverson. And I think, my dad used to say this to me, and it has a bunch of different applications, but I think that it's germane here. He said because he had an interesting way of dressing as well, but he would say, you have to be your own man in this world. And if nothing else, Allen Iverson has always been his own man in this world. And sometimes that's been to his detriment, and I think that he'd tell you that. But more times than not, it's been very much to his credit, because for all of the people who wanted him to be something else, or to wear a suit, or not to have cornrows, or not to put on jewelry, or not to have his tattoos, he said, no, this is me, and you should either accept it or not.
Yeah. So I'm presuming the Jordan era was the last era of the suits. They're not all walking around in suits now, are they?
I lose track of it. It's also changed because of the pandemic, right? Previously, there was a rule where you had to have a jacket on the sideline if you weren't playing, and coaches had to be in suits. Now, post-pandemic, I think everybody's gone, let's just keep our athleisure on. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. You said, so this time you chatted with Iverson before the pandemic. I like the way you put it in the piece in the Ringer. You said, he was busy and he was on Iverson time, which I think means he was pretty badly late. And it does seem from your piece like he has a no-show quality throughout his life. I mean, there's no guarantees if he's booked in to do something, he's going to show up. But you said we ended up having a couple of different Aaron Sorkin walk and talk kind of conversations. There was a lot of hustle and bustle, and there was some event on or some sponsorship thing. So, I mean, is he a good guy to chat to? Would he engage with you and show a certain kind of humility, or is he, I'm Allen Iverson and I'll do it my way or no way kind of a vibe?
So the timing thing, it's part and parcel of interviewing Allen. I've been lucky enough, fortunate enough to be in his orbit for various publications or media outlets or TV stations over my career. And it always sort of goes the same way, where you give a general time and hopefully Allen shows up. Generally, he will be slightly late, or there are times when he doesn't show. However, when you do get to Allen, he's incredibly engaging. I mean, he's so gracious with his time. There are times when, the connection doesn't end up happening. But once the connection ends up happening, he's always been phenomenal. And I can't thank him enough, one, for spending time with me for that piece, because we spent the entire game together. I mean, he had a zillion different obligations to do at the game, but I went with him for all of it. And then we sat in the box together and we talked, and, the crowd was cheering him, and we took pictures for him. And then previously, even, when I was still working and living in Philadelphia, when I had a TV show there, he had come on multiple times and given me, as much time as I could use. Okay. So I think the whole thing with Allen is, once you get to him, he's fantastic. Sometimes getting to him depends on the day.
Yeah. So he's retired just over 10 years now. What's he doing with himself?
Always a good question. Depends on the day. He's been writing a book for some time. I think that he hopes to get that out soon. And, he's still an ambassador for the 76ers. And there was times that, in that piece where we talked about, did he want to get back into basketball? And I think that, if he could get a job where it was some sort of advisory capacity, he might be interested in that. But as always, his main function and his main day-to-day activity is being Allen Iverson.
Was he popular with his contemporaries, fellow players, teammates? What would they tend to say about Iverson?
I think, by and large, almost everybody I talk to loves Allen. I mean, if you go around with him and you see not just his contemporaries, Joe, but guys who came after him, he remains a superstar. To see him walking around on the court, the game that I ended up covering, the Lakers were in town. I mean, LeBron James stopped to make sure that he paid homage and said hello to Allen Iverson. So I think pretty much to a man, people who have come into Allen's orbit really enjoy being in Allen's orbit, because there's there's a star quality there and something that you don't often see in everyday humans, right? I mean, I just recently did a story about Inside the NBA, which is the Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith and Shaquille O'Neal show. And Dwayne Wade said to me that Shaq is a human, but not really a human like the rest of us, that he's a one of one. And that's kind of how I think about Allen Iverson.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That